Had to find a go live now. Hello, everybody. We are live. It is nearly, about 4 minutes to the beginning of the actual Sunday service, but I'm here 4 minutes early because I haven't had a Sunday service in a couple of weeks. Been busy every Sunday. Sunday has just become one of those days where everybody wants you. Everybody wants you. And then, of course, Drift Games had LZ Live as well. In the middle of that was one of the Sundays, which I imagined an awful lot of you would have been at. So I left it alone. Good afternoon, though. It is the Sunday service. It is just coming up 2 o'clock, and it is a wet and miserable day out there. And just stay in. Just stay in. It's just easier if you stay indoors and stick with us here and see how it goes on. So click the like button, click the subscribe button, click whatever it is you're trying to click on right now. And we'll try and get around to everybody's questions. There's a couple of early questions. Well, Rob Brady was asking any early question. Consider a second-hand Ford Focus for the 1-litre EcoBoost reliable engine, or is just to be avoided? I've heard conflicting reports. Well, I have no conflicting reports. I can tell you the EcoBoost engine gave nothing to me. Seems to just throw, every time I mention EcoBoost online, everyone goes, don't touch it. It's not worth it. It's terrible. It's a bad engine. Whether it is or not, I'm not quite sure. But mechanically, people are talking to me about being bad engine. So I don't know. I don't know whether you should or shouldn't, but I wouldn't. It's a very small engine with a turbocharger in it that's designed to make you go faster in a big car. And that none of those things can be good things, if you know what I mean. There's too much of that going on. So that was the early question that came in there from Rob Brady. Thank you very much, Rob, for providing that question to me. We are changing a little bit of the show. So I was messing around my deck there, and I can actually take phone calls direct online, if you know what I mean, in a Joe Duffy sort of style of way. So we're going to try that, not necessarily today. We're going to give it a shot. Going to get someone to phone in and get things working. See how that goes. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen because nothing ever happens in the way you think it's going to happen on most of these things. But it is a nice wet day for Sunday service. According to Eric Watcher, you're absolutely right, Eric. It is a wet and dreary and horrible day for the last day of Cannonball, which is also running around the country today. So it's down in Trim. I think it's finishing in Trim this afternoon. But it's a wet, miserable day. It's always horrible when you're trying to arrange an event, get across the country, and then find out that your last stop is washed away. They did have a little collision yesterday. My heart drops whenever I see that because I've been in those events. I know what it's like. People want you to rev the engine, they want you to do burnouts and things. And all it takes for one momentary lack of concentration or not touching the brakes at the right time or getting your foot stuck under the pedal or whatever it is, and bang, you're in the back of someone else. And that has happened I was on Cannonball last year and it happened on that as well. There was a rear-ending incident, and again this year. I think there's probably too many cars. Maybe too many cars, maybe just too small of an area or something, trying to get people through. But fingers crossed there'll be no more collisions on Cannonball because a lot of my friends are on it. A lot of the guys are going to be spending time with in the near future are on it as well. So I'm going to keep those guys very happy. I will be going to Scotland with Bumblebee. We're going over a thing called On the Loch. We're going to get a ferry from Belfast and we're going over to Scotland, going to go around Loch Lomond and places like that a couple of nights, and then we're back over here again, just waiting for confirmation of what the car is that I'm actually going to do. There's Robert Mulhall has dropped in as well. Have I seen Link & Co? Yes, I have. Link & Co is what I've been predicting for a long time. It's definitely coming in the car industry in a big, big way. And that is paying a monthly fee to get access to a brand of car. That's exactly what they're trying to do. This is backed by Geely. This is backed by Chinese money. Now, China had a lot of money recently, but I'm not so sure they're going to keep all that money going at the moment. But if China really, really, really put the pressure on the European car market, we're going to find big, big changes ahead. And I really don't think a lot of it's going to work for the car industry, your car industry, or the car industry as a whole. I mean, the people who are working in it, dealerships and so on. I don't know if that's going to be the most straightforward thing for everybody, but hopefully we'll see some sort of a resolution to that. But right now, Link & Co is the one that's actually I'm tweeting right now while I'm talking. I'm tweeting, like multitasking. But Link & Co is what's putting out right now. And that's going to be an interesting place. And the reason why I said it's so interesting is simply because Link & Co have money. They have Geely money behind them. And Geely money is good money. That's a lot of money. And they're gonna push that very, very hard to get you to buy into the system. So essentially what you're talking about is like a mobile phone contract. It's like a television contract. It's like renewing your broadband at home. You're going to give them a monthly fee. They're going to give you a car. No other expenses happen. It'll be an electric car. You're just going to drive the electric car around all you want, and you will never own it. And we're back to Klaus Schwab there, and you will own nothing and be happy. That's essentially what they want you to do. Not they. I don't mean they as in some sort of grey, mysterious people in the background who are trying to do the whole world down. But I mean, the way the car industry is moving now is becoming this slightly different place. Instead of looking for car owners, they're looking for car people to just pay the money all the time, which is why they're experimenting in the background as well with things like, renting Apple CarPlay, that sort of stuff, where they want you to pay a little fee every single month to kind of push the CarPlay on a bit. That's what they're going to do with cars in the future as well. Peter Cupid says, "Hi Bob, hope you well. I am. Your thoughts on 2017 C-Class 220 diesel coupe? Nice car. Never into the coupe style of one. Always like the kind of saloon or the estate version of it. I think the coupe one is a challenging look. Big problem with the coupe ones is leaky around the back doors. That's around the boot lid, like that kind of area. That was the one that would be the good one to watch out for. So be careful of that one. That can come up as all right. There's myself looking at reading a few minutes, spread the word. On my head of myself here. Dave Davis says, diesel's not dead. Everyone wants it for generators now. This is true. We're in an energy crisis. And that means all energy, not just electricity or gas. I mean, diesel, petrol, it's everything, right? Now, some say that it's a manufactured energy crisis. Some people say that it's an energy crisis, but only in petrol terms or in diesel terms or in gas terms or in electricity terms. And what happened to the renewable energy? Well, unfortunately, we being Ireland, buy on what's called a wholesale energy market. I mean, we're subject to the movements of the wholesale energy. And that's where most of our problems is happening right now. That's really what's going on. People are they're buying it at a rate, trying to sell it on. But at the same time, there are humongous profits being made by energy companies. Meanwhile, ordinary people sitting at home can't afford to turn on the heat or, boil a kettle or whatever other thing we want to blame on it right now. But certainly it is going to be a very difficult next couple of years are going to be a problem. And I think, listen, I was listening to Euronews this morning, who have some good shows called State of the Union things on a Sunday morning, where they talk to kind of leaders and stuff. And they had the governor of the Central Bank of Portugal was on. He's also part of the kind of central bank or European Monetary Fund. And he was talking about this kind of trying to avoid recession by the interest rates going up and trying not to put them up so far. Do you bring recession on? And it's going to be a difficult 6 or 7 months. I hope you're all in a position that you can withstand those 6 or 7 months. I don't know if I can. We've had some medical news recently that's going to change things quite dramatically around the house for a bit, but that's kind of an internal family thing. So I don't know, it's going to be a real strange few months, I think, for the next while. And if we can get through it, it's going to be great. But diesel is not dead, as Dave Davis says. It definitely isn't. Niall Burke is in with very wet Tipperary. It's a very wet Laois as well. I can absolutely promise that. It's been raining since I woke up this morning. It was raining. Johnny Dobb is here as well. Joseph Handlin says it's greetings from a gloomy Cork. It's gloomy this end of the country as well. Andy FX7 is good afternoon all. Nice to be free to watch it live for a change, usually in the evening with beers. Yeah. Wouldn't be doing that now. Wouldn't want to be doing that sort of thing. But it would be nice day to have a beer, all right, for sure, to be staying inside and watch a movie or something. I haven't even seen any good movies recently, because I've seen a few now. We've been watching some Apple TV, by the way. If you have Apple TV, I can strongly advise you to watch Bad Sisters. It's an Irish program, but it doesn't look Irish. It's really well filmed. And it's funny. It's properly funny. It's properly making me laugh. And it's really, really good. We've been watching all the series of S-E-E, which is very good. It's about the end of the world, but they're all blind. It's very good. It's very good. I can't explain it to you. You need to watch it. It's gotten a little convoluted, but it's still pretty good. And obviously, Long Way series is on Apple TV as well. So Long Way Up, Long Way Down, and Long Way Round are all on Apple TV as well. So you can watch that too. I don't know what else to watch. 1971 is also very good as well. Johnny Duff says, Niall Boylan style phone out and bring out the lunatics. Yeah, maybe. I don't know whether or not. It's weird because I did lives on TikTok where I did chat roulette, which is where the lunatics live. And I got very little of it. So I don't know whether people would actually use their phone number. You see, I wouldn't answer a private number on it. their phone number, and I could put them on speaker, so you could all hear them. I had to put the headphones on, but you could all hear them in the stream, which would be kind of cool, I think, in its own little way. Seeing the Tip and Cannonball run, most unfortunate, was definitely it was just an unfortunate moment. It wasn't not intentional, not stupid. It's just one of those moments where either an eye was taken off the road for just a blink of an eye, or a foot went under an accelerator, or went under the pedal, or something slipped off the pedal. It could be any of those things. But unfortunately, that if you look at that crash again, the GTR, there's a pedestrian safety little points on both sides of the bonnet. When they pop out, a lot of other things have happened underneath the car to protect the pedestrian. That's going to be really expensive. I would actually say it probably might even be a write-off. DF1204 says, after a very drenched Scotland, hope you get better weather on your trip. I hope so too. I did 800-mile round trip in my 208 GTI, averaged 45 miles per gallon with AC on. Fuel price varied hugely up and down the UK. I noticed as well, we've been watching what's happening in the UK, because obviously we're going there. We're going to Scotland. So there's been a lot of talk on a WhatsApp group about what to expect when we get there. You know, whether it's going to be very expensive petrol and diesel in Scotland, or whether we're going to have to worry about the price of everything, like having a beer or any of that. You know, what way is it going up? Because traditionally, the UK has always had pretty expensive fuel. But things that you do every day, like things you go for a pint or go for a dinner out or something, wasn't terribly expensive. Just hotels were expensive. That was the thing. So I was a little bit worried about that, but it seems to be kind of balancing out a little bit. But now, of course, today is two things. One is the Queen of England, the former Queen of England, has passed away. So her body is being shipped right now through Scotland. And now the King of England has taken over as King Charles III has taken over. But also today is the 11th of September. So it is actually 21 years since 9/11, which is where we are. I can remember it pretty well. 21 years. I can't believe it's 21 years. But it is 21 years seemingly today. So two things being remembered today. Take Me Schnapp says, greetings from a dry and sunny Belmullet. Really? It's dry and sunny up there. Let's all go to Belmullet. Hellhound says, hey, Bob, good to see you back. Hope all is well. All is pretty well. More information on that later on. We'll talk at length when I talked to the rest of the fam about stuff as well. But there is some medical stuff going on at the moment that we have to deal with. But these things come, these things go. Maybe they go, maybe they don't go away. Maybe we just learn to live with these things. Greetings from dying Germany. It's dying in Germany, is it? What? That's bad weather when people are dying. Charlie Max says, I'm sitting here in my diesel Peugeot 3008 and listening to Bob All the Best in Donegal. Congratulations, Charlie. I'm glad you're sitting in the car listening to me as well. That always keeps everybody occupied. Mamin says, what do you think of car makers having to pay monthly access options on your car, like heated seats, then the brake? Should the manufacturer pay to fix them? So in the old days, we used to rent televisions, just so you all know. Years and years and years ago, when I first started living on my own, we rented televisions, we rented things, electronic devices and stuff. We rented all of that stuff because it was too expensive to buy them. You could rent them for a couple of euro a week. And if you were clever, you could do slightly other things to it as well. You could actually get a money box on the side of the TV and put 50 pence in it when you want to watch TV. Same for electricity. You used to be able to put 50 pence in the thing and it would give you electricity for a couple of hours. So there's all kinds of ways. Now, car companies know that making a car right now, so manufacturing a car right now, is really expensive. It costs millions in development. It costs billions in development. If you look at what Mercedes have invested, 9.8 billion over the last 3 years or something to develop the EQ range, which review the EQE coming very shortly. Best electric car driven ever. But they spend billions doing that. Now, to recoup the billions, they have to sell millions of cars. They have to sell them in huge numbers. And that's why the top 10 car manufacturers, car sales manufacturers, really important to car manufacturers. Now, suppose you didn't have to sell them. Suppose you could give them to people and they would be handed to those folks and they would pay you ongoing money for the rest of their natural born days and never actually own the car. So the car would go back and be resold and resold and resold and resold multiple times. Essentially rehired. You're just going to pass it on and rehire someone else every few months. Now, that would be constant money spinner. That would be a constant thing. You wouldn't have to get massive loans to make the cars because they're already rented out. You'd know how many cars you need to manufacture. It's all kinds of ways that makes sense to people. So it's definitely going to be a norm that's coming at you. It's up to you whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, whether you want to take that on or you don't want to take it on. That's the big point. I'm more of a fan and will be forever of buying a second-hand car, a few years old, with as little electronics in it as you possibly can manage, and buy that and drive it till it falls asunder. That's, from an environmental perspective, I think owning an old car and driving it till it's absolutely destroyed is the best thing you can possibly do for the environment and probably for your pocket. But cars are getting more and more electronic as you come back. Cars that are 5, 6, 7 years old now are heavily connected to the internet and often require updates and things as well from the system. So with those kind of things in place, you're going to have to make choices in the future that maybe won't suit you and you won't even think about for another 5 or 6 or 8 years when you're looking to buy a 10-year-old car, you know? So that's where that will change. If something is rented, it can be turned off as well. But certainly if you're renting it, if I was renting a television and the television broke, the company would replace the television. It's just that straightforward because it's rented. So it'll have to be the same with cars, I would imagine. Peter Ucart's here as well. Thank you very much. Just a minute. Any thoughts on new Lexus RX due out next year? It's hard to predict what Lexus make really good cars. And I know it's just launched in the LA. I've seen the thing. They make really good cars and always have. I know that some of them have been pretty boring, but they're actually pretty good cars. They last pretty well. But moving into this electric space, I don't think they're experts in it. I think they're experts in the petrol smoothness of a car and the weight distribution stuff. I don't think anyone's brilliant in the electric space just yet. Even Tesla, I think, are still trying to find their way into the car industry of things, not just electric cars, but just generally car industry, supporting a fleet, having warranty claims, all those things that every other car company just takes for granted. Tesla's never really done. Now they're trying to get it together, you know. But the Lexus RX looks good. It looks nice. I don't think we need any more SUVs. Will you please find some estate cars or find something that we can do that's not a bloody small SUV at this stage? Because it's a pain in the ass. The Euro will crash 6 months tops. I don't know. I don't know about that now, Blex. I'll be honest with you. If the Euro do you understand what that means? Do you understand if a currency was to be worthless, was to go to worthless? So essentially, if a currency, you're talking about the fall of the Roman Empire, is really what you're talking about. Is a currency that's been driven down to zero and now it's worthless. And of course, that brings down a whole empire. So you're talking about the end of the European Union if the euro crashed in 6 months' time. That's essentially it. So I don't think that would ever even be allowed to happen. It'd be the same for the dollar. If the American dollar crashed, which the American dollar's been in trouble for a little while as well, but if the American dollar crashed, that would be the end of America. They would have to find another currency, another way of doing business. And so if the euro crashes, I think it'll take everything else with it. I think the pound will go with it. I think the dollar will go with it. We'll all end up looking at electronic, I don't know, some sort of cryptocurrency or something to survive on. So I think that's going to be difficult. Charlie Mack says, on an energy crisis topic, I'm not a Trump supporter, but he did say to Germans the EU was overly too reliant. He correctly did, actually. It was too reliant on Russian gas. They laughed at him. Well, here we are. Well, that's true, but I don't think he was alone in saying about being too reliant on Russian gas. I think the entire of the EU has been too reliant, and it's been a little bit cozy. Let's be serious. Over the last few years, the relationship between the EU and Russia and China and America has always been a little bit too cozy. It's always been too easy. All it took was for someone just to stir the pot a little bit, being Russia, and away we went. And suddenly we're all in an energy crisis. I don't think the whole energy crisis is responsibility of Russia invading Ukraine, but it certainly is in heads of people out there for sure. But energy crisis, Charlie, I think is going to continue for a while because we're moving into winter this time of the year. We're normally drawing down more and more of the energy. What I call wet energy, I don't mean that in a nasty way. Gas is not wet. Okay, so wet energy to me is fuels, petrols and diesels. Gas energy is a different energy to me entirely. And then electricity is a different energy. So the wet energy stuff is going to be a bit of a problem, which is petrol and diesel and anything oil related. And then you have gas and electricity, which is two different things. But actually, gas is used to fire turbines that create electricity. So there's another part of that as well. Graham Cullen says, I've been watching classic TV films on Amazon, Paramount, like Cheers and Magnum PI, Ghostbusters, Hunt for Red October. They're good. They're actually good suggestions. You could... we have some sort of a streaming box thing downstairs, and I have no idea how we end up with that. Anyway, we got it. Some of it was installed for me. And the other night I was watching Nevermind the Buzzcocks, episode 1. It was madcap stuff, which is an old English TV show, but it's really good. But Ghostbusters, the old Ghostbusters TV, or the Ghostbusters movie was actually pretty good. Automotive L3 says afternoon, everyone, sorry a bit late. Hope not missed much. You haven't missed the whole lot. You're all right. I don't know how far ago that was. Richard McCarthy says afternoon, Bob from Sligo. How's Sligo? How's Cannonball? Did you go to Cannonball now? Any prediction on what the budget will bring energy or EV incentives? I don't think, from an EV point of view, I don't think they're going to do anything to EV. And God forbid that I swear to God, if Eamon Ryan messes with the EV incentives, we're going to be in deep trouble. I know he wants rid of them. I know he wants to get rid of the things, but actually it's the only thing saving it now. It's the only thing that's making sales even remotely useful to us. So we are in trouble if any of that gets moved. But for budgetary stuff, tax on cars hasn't gone up in a while. They recently brought in a reduction on the VAT, excise duty on petrol and diesel. That's gone away. Now maybe they'll do something with that again. They can't, there's so little room for them to maneuver on anything to do with cars. Cars have traditionally been the target of tax. So they put more tax on the cars when they need more money. But what can they do now? They have literally driven the commuter away from the centres of work to countryside. That's what they've done. They've pushed all the commuters out to Athy, to Carlow, Kildare, Portlaoise, where I am. There are so many Dublin people living here. It's going to be a very strange few months because without the car, without the personal transport, we're in trouble. Like you just can't get to work. And people don't want us to work remotely for some strange reason. I do. Obviously, I work in my own office right here. But realistically, most people on PAYE jobs don't work remotely. They can't. The employers just don't want it anymore. So I don't know where that's going to go. It's going to be very difficult for budgetary stuff. I don't see a good budget coming. I think there's going to be giveaway money, but essentially they're going to say, here's another 200 or 400 or 600 quid to offset your electricity bill. But sure, they might as well just give that to the electricity company. Sure, what use is that to us? Like, that doesn't help us as individuals. That's not doing a cap or doing something about energy to make it cheaper for us. That's just taking tax money to give it to the other man to get the tax money back again. Doesn't make any sense. Rabbit the Brit says, hi Bob, do you talk about that swapping batteries idea? I didn't talk about it, yes. So swapping batteries, we've discussed swapping batteries a few times. This is a NEO thing. There's a couple of car companies who've been playing with the idea of swapping batteries. And it on the face of it, it seems okay. But there are some really high logistical problems with these batteries swap systems because keeping a battery topped up is very expensive. That's number one. Number two, it damages the battery. So keeping a battery at 100% charge all the time is bad for the battery. You're better off keeping it around 80, 85, 75, something around there to keep that sort of thing going. So if you bring that in for battery swaps, so if you're driving up to town, you go, oh, wow, I've only got 5% of my battery left, and you tip into this battery swap place to give you 100% battery, you know, that's been, how long has that been on charge? Is it a new battery? Is it an old battery? How often am I going to swap it? Battery swap sounds like a brilliant idea, but what if you only swap your battery every 6 months? And you buy a brand new car and you swap it for a battery that's nearly a year old. You bought an old battery. Battery is the most expensive part of the car. So Renault played with the idea of leasing the battery. That went down like a ton of bricks. There's so much so they just went, forget it. We're not doing that anymore. And so they've all had a swing at it. I still have to see anyone who's actually going to do it right or has done it right. Jay Brooks says, it's sunny in Manchester. Oh, lucky. Maybe the sun has come behind. I have a great weather app, by the way, which is absolutely brilliant. If you want to know what's going to happen in the next 12 hours, it's fantastic. It's called the Weather Channel. I use it all the time. It has a little radar thing on it to tell you what's happening with weather right now this minute. And we're going to just break for the weather. So that's what's happening in the weather right now. There is the rain clouds passing over. I don't know how much of that you can actually see, but we're trying to adjust it. But yeah, that's what it looks like at the moment. So the weather is passing over me. That is the rain heading off, and the rain is heading sort of north towards Edinburgh. If you're up that direction, it's already passing over Belfast and Douglas, and it's going to head on about 6 or 7 p.m. this evening up around Edinburgh. It's going to be absolutely lashing rain, but the rain will stop here, which is good. Seascape says, good day, tuning in from Perth, Western Australia. God, that's the way. That's what we like. We're all over the world again, broadcasting all over the place. DF1204 says, everything is expensive in the UK. More so normal now because of COL and energy. We stayed in an Airbnb about an hour outside Cardiff to avoid the crazy hotel prices of the city. Hotel prices, lads, are gone wild. I've been looking at hotel prices for the last while. You know the way you think you might want to just bring the family away for just like an overnight, just down to Waterford or Wexford or somewhere. And all you want is a bed and breakfast essentially in a hotel. You just want to turn up, go into a hotel, have a nice little dinner, go to bed, give it a nice day, maybe use a leisure centre or something. Lads, you may as well forget it. You'd be better off flying to Portugal for the weekend. Although Aer Lingus cancelled all their flights recently. I go to Paris next week. I hope it doesn't happen again with Aer Lingus as well. But the price of not just hotels, but the price of food, eating out, restaurants, taxis, lift, everything associated with a night out is also gone up in price. That's going to be a big problem, I think. Aidan McLaughlin says, hi Bob, I was a big fan of EV, but really can see it working. ESB is charging points in London, but can't sort out Northern Ireland and Ireland. Businesses in NI on max output and can't consider solar or wind. This is the biggest problem. I'll just put on the rest to continue because they can't sell back to the grid, not allowed. At the moment, we're not able to do it. Well, we can. They brought in some sort of a system, but it's not really worth your while firing money at it. So the changeover to get from where I am, which is no solar input to the house, I'm 100% electricity, bought in from the grid, to having solar panels on a house that's able to charge a battery, and the battery could at least part of the day run the house. The cost for me to do that would be well in excess of 20 grand at the moment. That's if I could find somebody to do it as well. You have to find a builder to install these things and certify them and put them all in. Now, how long will it take me to get back 20 grand? That very much depends on how much electricity I use, you know. So if my average bill is like 300 quid a quarter, then it'll take me 20 years to recover the energy back out. 20 years. Like, I probably won't live another 20 years. So that'd be crazy. I'd be 70. So I don't know whether going to solar is a great idea, a bad idea, a good idea. For cleaning the environment, for sure. Getting yourself off grid, great stuff. Love all that. If you have plenty of money and you're not going to notice, but if you're going to have to get a loan out to do this, or get a long-term loan from the government or one of these kind of incentive grant schemes where it's not grant, you have to pay it back or whatever, that's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass, I think. And it's going to cause us some amount of problems in the future for the grid because we still can't sell it to the grid. But if you own an electric car, 60 grand electric car, and you have another 20 grand to spend on putting your solar panels and batteries and all that sort of stuff in, it might run. What kind of, I don't know. I don't want to sit all day looking at a bloody app on my phone going, oh my God, I'm generating 0.2 of a megawatt. Wow, sounds exciting, all right. The pound may go digital with the death of the Queen Elizabeth III or II. The banks have been looking for an excuse. Although I do see a lot of posts saying that they're going to bring back in the currency that has Queen Elizabeth on it and replace it with currency that will have King Charles on it. So there is movement in somewhere or another that they're saying they're going to do that. And there is a lot of tradition. There's a lot of things that have to go forward. Like I've seen the guys, the Busby guys, are they called Busby? The guys with the big hats on them. They normally do ceremonial things. They actually took the hats off the other day. First time I've ever seen one of those guys with a hat off them. So there's stuff that's happening, I think, that's going to continue happening for the UK. I don't know what King Charles is going to be like. He's been like the lady in waiting since forever. I remember as a child, my mother going that Liz should step aside and let King Charles in or let Prince Charles in. She liked him. He's a heavy environmentalist as well. UK, you want to be looking at yourselves right now because he is a very big political attitude and a very big environmentalist. So if there's an environmental thing coming, King Charles III will be at the front of it. Jason Case, does anyone else notice diesel and petrol getting further apart? Nearly 20 cent. The difference used to be 5 to 10 cent. Correctamundo. Same here in Ireland. I've seen €2 a litre for diesel, 180, 182, 183 for petrol at its lowest, 190 for petrol at its highest. There is another petrol price increase coming. Sorry, we're coming into winter. People want more. Schools are back. People are back commuting to work and things. It is going to become a problem. I also noticed that the price of parking in Dublin Airport in the short term has gone to €70 for a parking space. That is a rip-off for putting your car in a space that costs nothing to run. €70. You people are mad to be paying that. I'm getting a bus to the airport next time. I got a bus the last time. I went to the ID Buzz and I got a bus up to Dublin Airport. I got it with Kavanagh's bus. It cost me €15 to drive there and be chauffeured there. Now, it did take a long time. It was over an hour and a half on the bus, at least an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4. So it's a bit of a trek, but And it doesn't quite drop you at the door of the airport either. It drops you around the bus park. But it doesn't really matter. It was 15 quid versus €70 to park for 48 hours. And I, being self-employed, I can claim back that money, that parking money. And so can a lot of self-employed people. And that's why the price has gone up. You guys are just too quick to just pay money out and be done with it. I'm much more minding the pennies you get there. But the same for petrol and diesel. It is, the price has become a bit of a difference between the two. Hashtag Davis says, big greetings. I have one question. Does Ireland have some policy on what sort of cars can be driven in cities like France, Spain, Germany have in place which ban certain cars to be driven? Not currently is something that's been watched at right now, David. Congestion charge we don't have either. So France, the ones we're talking about is France, Spain and Germany have brought in various ideas of what can and can't be driven in certain cities at certain times. Sometimes they won't allow any diesel, sometimes they won't allow any petrol, sometimes they won't allow a car with an odd number or even number license plate on certain days. They're trying to get down congestion. 100% air quality. I seen a report in The Guardian the other day, actually tweeted by Tom York. But I seen a report in The Guardian the other day, 100% air quality has the biggest effect on people who don't smoke getting lung cancers and getting cancers of that tract, of the esophageal cancer, mouth cancers, all that stuff where you would breathe in, nose cancers, back of the nose cancer, that sort of stuff is all coming from air quality, which is definitely dictated directly by vehicles, by diesel and petrol engine cars burning things in cities. Because we've gotten rid of, think in London, when I used to go to London first as a kid, it was a very dirty city. Everything was run on petrol, everything was run on diesel, and they had heating systems and stuff in houses, and there was still kind of live fires here and there, which they got rid of after a while. Now it's a bit cleaner now, but it's still in that compact area. It's still stinking in London. And the same for Dublin. Dublin's getting along the same lines, just as bad. But we don't have any incentive here, particularly to not bring a diesel right into a city. I'm a fan of banning cars, just cars in total out of Dublin city centre. Get rid of cars, electric or otherwise. Only thing allowed in is Lewis, buses and taxis. And that's it. And bikes, of course, and that sort of stuff. Automotive L3 makes a good point here to hit the like button. Thank you very much for hitting the like button. It's always very good. Hitting the like, hitting the subscribe. There is a list of links down below if you want to support the channel in some way, which would be very good of you to support the channel. There is, obviously, you can go and just do super chats here if you want to. But there is other ways of doing little drip feeds. We have PayPal, we have Patreon down there as well if you want to do that too. If you'd like to come over to Patreon and give us a little bit of cash there, it'd be really good. Really helps. We're obviously all struggling to get things. I'm currently sans a sponsor of any kind, so I don't have any sponsors on the channel, which at the moment kind of suits me, to be honest with you. DF1204 says, on energy crisis, was quoted £13,000 for an air pump heater, but to get £7,500 back from the government, which means the price will never drop below that as long as it's in place. Correct. I've always had the same theory. It's a strange sort of a theory. So if you hire in a salesperson and you say, listen, you're going to get 20 grand a year and your expensive ground is 5 grand a year, you just give him a salary of 25,000 euros a year. There is no question in my mind that they're going to do everything they can to spend that 5 grand, right? It's exactly the same with grants. When the grants came in here in Ireland and it was like 5 grand grant and 5 grand back from the VRT, all the cars went up by 10 grand. They just went up. They were more expensive than they ever were. Immediately, petrol and diesel cars rose up. You can't buy a 25 grand sort of normal hatchback anymore. They're all 35 to 38 grand now. Estate start at 40. An ordinary diesel SUV starts at 45, nearly 50 grand. And it just keeps going up. And that comes from the grant. And it's exactly the same as DF has pointed out there. £13,000 for an air pump heater. We're talking about 16,000 here. And you have to move out to get the thing put in. But the reason it's so expensive is because there is an energy grant for putting one in. And that's brought in. So they bring that into the pricing. When they're pricing it, they know you're going to get a grant. That's the problem. And the grants are actually manipulating the prices of what we actually pay. Instead of competing, you'll never get it any cheaper because the grant is already there. Aidan McLaughlin says, if everyone had an EV by 2030, the grid will blow up in Ireland. Correct. We need to start looking at financial regulators right across the board in Ireland. Minimum pricing, alcohol and concert tickets, but VRT. There are so many things that are completely ignored in this country, not just in this country, but ignored by many countries, because a lot of our politicians are not working on behalf of you anymore. They're working on behalf of business. They work on behalf of big corporate businesses that are pushing forward. And those corporate businesses are the ones that are doing the lobbying, the questions, they spend time, they hire people to go and do these sort of things. And so those people are driving our conversations about stuff now. And they're the ones that are putting pressure on governments to say energy is going to go up in price, going to go up in price. Whereas years ago, we would have, not that many years ago, we would have had politicians in the country who would just work on behalf of the consumer. They don't care what business they're doing. It's just the consumer that's all that matters. That's what you actually elect them for. But we're finding very few of those now. And so they can have minimum price alcohol, which drove up the price of alcohol for people who couldn't afford alcohol already. That's so the price of a bottle of wine in Aldi is essentially nearly the same as it was before. It hasn't really changed that much. It's still about, but the cheapest bottle of wine is gone. So essentially the one that was $5.99 or $4.99 at the bottom of the shelf that people were buying and just having, because that's what they could afford once a week, they're gone. Now they have to pay $7.99. That's what minimum pricing alcohol has done to us. That, and we brought in a good range now of non-alcoholic beverages, which is quite good to see. You can basically buy all of your beers and all of your wine, even gins now, that are non-alcoholic, zero alcohol in all of them. That's a good. I like that choice. That's good. But the minimum price alcohol had no effect whatsoever on the top end of the market. The ones that could afford the $10.99, the $12.99, the 15 or 18 quid bottle of wine are still buying it. It's still 18. That hasn't changed a damn thing. But it brought up the price of all of the cheapest range of Buckfast and all them things that are nasty yolks. Those prices have gone up. And I don't think that actually it has done anything to get rid of alcoholism, or alcohol related crime hasn't really gone down. Nothing much has changed. People have just gone to home brewing or whatever they're doing. Dry and sunny in Achill. It's a long way to Achill from here, boy. Automotive L3 says battery swapping works with aluminium oxygen batteries. They're 10 times more efficient than lithium ion. Do not suffer degradation either. Really? I must look up aluminium oxygen batteries. Did I talk to the guy from... I was on a trip with Hyundai. No, not Hyundai. Kia. And the fella who's in charge of battery for the Hyundai Kia group gave a talk about the way that the machinery works inside the magnets that are moving. He had a big example thing. He gave us a full lesson, like a good half an hour. And I was sitting there going, this is amazing stuff, which is why that video is, because I got so much information out of it, which is brilliant. But I'd love to sit down with some of those battery tech guys again. Did that before in the early days, but now they're moving so fast. It's crazy stuff. Connor Hanley says, hey, I had the Gibson booked for Bon Iver on October the 16th. I sold the tickets, going to go to Peter Hook in Mahone City, Limerick instead. I know it's crazy. It's crazy to think how much the hotels have become, particularly around events. The price of hotels right now, while Garth Brooks is playing up in Dublin, has been astronomical price, which is kind of crazy. On an environmental front as well, I have been giving out quite strongly on Twitter about Electric Picnic. Electric Picnic happens here in Stradbally in Laois. It's not far from me. You could drive there in 10 minutes. And lads, I swear to God, I looked at the tents, the hundreds and thousands and thousands and thousands of tents that are just being dumped into bins now. They're going into landfill, these things that don't break down, you can't recycle them, and they're cheap tents, and they're sold out of places like Lidl and Aldi and Dunn's, Tesco, Super Value, called festival tents, festival this, festival that, here's a sleeping bag, festival, and they're so cheap, they're disposable. This has to stop. That is an environmental crime, in my opinion, is that a festival that size is allowed to have that much rubbish come out of it in one go, and it all just goes. There should be a huge fine, and I'm talking about €100 million fine put onto the organisers of that event for pure wastage. And the same for people, if you brought it in, if you walked into a bloody place, you can walk out with it. It's still in your hands. Like, it's no difference going to a beach and you walk on with a bag full of stuff and you walk off with the same bag full of stuff. Just use it all. Don't leave it there. Automobile Tree says, Bob, we're opening a dedicated EV training centre at Harlow College. You're interested in visiting? I would be interested in visiting. Just getting to the UK is the problem at the moment. Next week I'm going to Paris, but I'm also going to Turkey next week with a car company. I can't talk about it. It's a super secret job, but we're going on to Turkey with a car company to do something wild. Full video of that will come out. It'll be the most exciting adventure video I've done so far. Also have another video planned. Is that next week? I think it's next week as well. So another video planned. I'm going to take an EV. Kia are going to give me a lend of their EV. And I'm going to drive around Ireland. Around it. 1,000 kilometres around it. So in a day. That could be a laugh. We'll see what happens when it turns to night. A good one says, what do you think of hybrid VW Tiguan? I'm thinking of changing it, but not sure how reliable the battery range is. And 50k, is there any better hybrid alternatives? No. Well, yes, there is. Kia Sportage, the current one, has a 50 to 70 kilometer range battery. And I'm going to say you average it out about 60 kilometers. Let's say you're going to get from the battery, 60 to 70, depending on how you drive it. If you put it in automatic mode, you go a lot further. I know I did this. But it's Sportage is absolutely super hybrid thing. Super. I was very, very happy with that. It's a plug-in hybrid. The Tiguan was not designed as a plug-in hybrid. So it's designed as a diesel petrol car. They just made space and put a battery into it. So the back seats are lifted ever so slightly in it. And it does make a difference. And it's a little bit wishy-washy, boring to drive, sort of. Just, it looks great. I think it's one of the finest looking cars, particularly the Aura model. It's a great looking car. But it is a little bit boring to drive. I would, right now, if I was looking at one of those, I would look at Sportage first. It's a gorgeous looking car. Sparky Sven. I like your name, Sparky Sven. Greetings from a sunny 22 degrees Celsius, Belgium. Oh, I was in Belgium once. Went to the main city there. I can't remember. Everyone had brown eyes. It's very strange. Lost my job and my brand new VW e-Golf 2019, but sold on EV. New job will have to supply me with an EV because of my BMW 1200S gave up after 200,000 kilometers, so I want an EV bike also. Well, that's good if your job will buy that. BMW the 1200, is that the GS model, the one that round the world one? That one? That's a good motorbike. I'd love to have a go at that. I'm also planning another. Once things settle down for the war, I might be able to get over that direction. We'll see what happens, but hopefully we're trying to get to Kazakhstan, do some stuff out that side of the world as well as adventure stuff. Obviously, this stuff costs a bleeding fortune to do. So, if you can help us out with any sort of tips or, funding or whatever you think, we want to make more adventure videos. Also, our trailer is getting ready for our TV show. Not funded yet. TV show's not ready. We're making a TV show, but we're trying to make pilots and do stuff and put it all together, give it to a TV company and make it happen. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll actually get made. And that might work all right. Retro Rebuild says the government are out of touch with things. We need to tax the colossal and it suits them too much to want to help. They check not even to give Vaseline when they're riding this that hard. That's pretty good. Yes, tax is upside down in my opinion, has always been. There are people at the top, and the higher up the food chain you get, the less kind of PAYE tax you pay. So PAYE employees have to pay their taxes normal as everything else. There isn't. If you earn 100 grand a year in this country, you pay over half of that in tax. That's just the way it is. 51 point something % in total is paid out in tax. But if you take in the contributions you make across the whole PRSI scheme. Now, self-employed people don't pay as much tax because a lot of it goes out in expenses. So a lot of self-employed stuff, and I find this myself, like I can expense things. You can expense fuel. You can expense things like plane tickets and stuff can all be expensed. So they don't come out of PRSI. But I still pay the same PRSI contributions as all of you do. So there's no difference between what I'm doing and what you're doing. It's just my money is variable. Your money is kind of set in a PRSI thing. So it does work out. But yes, the tax on corporation tax now is a whole different ballgame. The ones like Amazon and Apple and Microsoft and all these big Irish companies, Microsoft is Zandyford, all these big Irish companies that are here, and they just don't pay essentially any corporation tax. It's just one way or another, they're hiding it into different various ways of doing it. So that's where we have the problem. We could easily make billions and billions and billions from those huge big corporations, but instead we try to make billions from the ordinary working person in the street. Sparky's Fan says BMW does not have an e-motor, so it's not. Yeah, that's true. They don't actually yet. They don't really have an electric car yet either, like a proper one. I know they have like the 4 Series, but they're all converted petrol cars. Don't understand ICE bikes manufacturers are missing the e-motor trend. It's very complicated. I was actually talking to a fella who works for Harley Davidson, who provided the Harleys and made the Harleys for Long Way Up. Ewan McGregor, Charlie Boorman, riding up the country. They went on 2 electric Harley Davidson bikes. They cheated the arse off it. They cheated. They brought a diesel generator with them. But the idea was sound. The idea was good to get the cars up there, and it is one way of doing it and get the motorbikes up there. But the size of the battery, it really dictates how far the bike will be able to go and how fast it's able to go there. And that's the biggest problem with electric bicycles or motorbikes. E-Golf's company cars, well, that's good. There's exclusive Auto Club. Good to have you. All right, Bob, just collected a new Nero EV. Good car. Big step up from 2021 model, but the price has also jumped 7%. I know. GC, you're dead right. The price has gone up. The price goes up every time. Nero is now a dedicated electric car, though. That's the big thing of that part. It's not a converted hybrid or anything. Now it's a dedicated car. So that's kind of interesting. And it really is a big step up, particularly interior. Exterior is still interesting to look at, but interior is low. But the price increase, and I think that price will go up again. I think that's just like an introductory price. I think next year it'll be up again. Eric Crosher says, Bob, it's always interesting when you go to other cities and international trips, and we can all see how easy it is, cheap to get around, proper, segregated cycle lanes, etc. So much to learn here. 100%. And we fund delegations to go places, to do things, and they don't seem to ever come back with anything interesting to do that works here. Like when I was in, where was I recently? Was it Copenhagen or somewhere? I was in Denmark anyway. And in the video, it's actually in the end of the video for ID Buzz, I point out where, it's at the very end of the video, where the road has a curb, and after the curb is the cycle lane, and that has a curb, and after that curb is the pedestrian area. We don't do anything like that. We put a bloody cycle lane on the footpath. That's what we do. We push it up off the road onto the footpath. And so if you're traveling at any decent speed on a bicycle, which decent speed is 20, 25 kilometers an hour, yeah, that's a pretty decent speed. You have to watch out for pedestrians all over the place because they're in your cycle lane. There's no segregation between the two of them. And like France, Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, Finland, big parts of Germany, a lot of Spain, all have segregated cycle lanes in their cities. All of them. We haven't. We have this just a white line on the road. It's just enough. We'll call it a cycle lane and leave it at that. It'll be grand. It's a very Irish solution to things, lads. And I don't understand how we can't stop building things around the vehicle, around the car. Stop building stuff around the vehicle to drive through it. Start building stuff around pedestrians and cyclists to get around. Because that is the goal. If you look at where, like a lot of my social media was just absolutely full of the cycle lanes that I was looking at in Denmark, and the amount of beautiful people just cycling along, no helmets. They were wearing their normal clothes. They were wearing, just going for the day, and the bikes are parked everywhere. They look a bit messy when they're parked everywhere, but the bikes are parked everywhere, and they just get on with life. And this is Denmark. This is a cold country that gets a lot of rain like we do. We complain here it rains too much. It doesn't rain all that much, lads. We can do stuff more about it here for sure. Nigel Ross is great. Listen to you while sorting out the tools in the cellar at home. Interesting topics. There you go. I see. We have people doing everything. I was looking forward to a run today. I went out for a run yesterday with the wife. We did 7K out in the forest, up and down hills. I nearly died. I'm so old now. That's just not fun anymore. But it was a gorgeous afternoon yesterday. Sun was shining down on us. Beautiful day. Today, terrible. Not enough rain here. Michael Norton says Eamon Ryan must go. If ever there was a guy on social media who attracts all the wrong attentions, Eamon Ryan, a lot of what he says is actually factually correct. I don't. A lot of the statements he comes out, it's just such a funny way of putting them. It just has a kind of a cold way of communications, and it doesn't seem to come across as something we're supposed to do. It comes across as being preachy, sort of. You know what I mean? Like he's right on a number of topics, but more often than not, it's kind of a dreamland topic. He's in a dreamy way. We should all be able to be self-sustainable and have a lovely little vegetable patch out in our garden. But the reality of it is that a lot of people live in apartments and don't have a garden at all. There is nowhere to grow anything. So, and like some young people are so desperate they're willing to take places that don't even have a kitchen built in anymore. They don't even want a kitchen. Kitchen's the last thing. All they want to do is go to a takeaway. That's it. And live like that. I suppose that's happening too. It's modernisation. Kevin says the government should get involved on solar panels and give us grants to help us reduce the load on the grid, giving us 200 or 300 euro once off isn't helping anything long term and changing anything in the grid. Correctamundo, Kevin. The grants and the way that they're trying to bail us out. Essentially what's going on right now is they know that the price of electricity's gone so high, but they can't cut you off. Can't cut off your water, can't cut off your gas. It only takes one phone call to Joe Duffy and say, my family with a disabled child and an old age pensioner's out the back and we can't heat the house because we've been cut off. That would be the end of a government. That would be the downfall of a government, because all it would take is that one moment in time for that to happen. So they can't cut you off, but they can't really help you either. There's not a lot they can do about that. They're just going to have to kind of grin and bear it. And I think the solution is to bail us out. And so when our bill comes in and it's $3,000, and they give you 300 quid to go, hey, well, here's their offset of $3,000. We've helped you out. It doesn't. You've just given that to the ESB company. That's all you've done. You might as well have just given the money. If it's going to cost £1 billion, just give £1 billion to ESB and be done with it. Let them lower the bills, because it means nothing to us. Giving us actual money, handing us 300 quid a week for 6 weeks to help us, that would be helpful, because then you could choose what to spend it on. You could say, I'm going to spend it in Aldi, I'm going to spend it in Dunn's, you be in charge of it. But right now, the idea that they're just going to give money off your bill, that's no good to you. That's really not going to help you in the long term. It's only a short-term fix for a long-term problem. RKSBK says, if Greens were our government, we wouldn't be able to afford to live. Yes, if all the environmental things they're talking about were to come to fruition, it would be a very bleak. You would have a very bad time. Essentially, you would have a very, very bad time, I think, because it's no burning of anything, essentially. And that's true, but you can't do it overnight. But no burning of anything is what they really want. And there's so many other little bits and pieces they want to get rid of too, things around how we use electricity, the governance over electricity. There's just so many little things. Kevin has given me a super chat. Thank you very much, Kevin. You're very kind for the super chats that have come in as well. You can support the channel if you want to as well, if you're interested in this sort of thing. I know it's, for some of you new people, it is like a wall of voice coming at you, but it is done like a radio show. So you can listen to it. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. You don't have to look at my face when you're watching this. But it is helpful to see the messages on the screen. But this has all been put together and funded by the people who turn up every Sunday. And so they're the guys who put in money into Super Chats, into PayPal, into Patreon, and all these other means to communicate. And hopefully we'll be able to get more and more stuff together, be able to do more of the adventure ones, which I think from doing the Skoda one, driving the Skoda from pole to pole, I get the impression you just want me to do sort of adventure videos now instead of reviews. So we'll try and mix in as many adventure ones as we can, but they take forever to film. They really do take a long time. And it is just me that films and edits everything. I'm just a one-man band, so to speak. Where was I? Just picked up the new Euro EV, big step up for my 2021 model. I had that one already. Price jump by €7,000, 7%, I thought it was. Anyway, biggest problem with heating in the UK is insulation. If all the houses were more efficient, it would save them money, especially in freezing old Scotland when we consistently get below zero over winter. Insulation is a big thing. Containing the heat you've already got in a house is far more important than actually heating something. The most expensive thing you can do is to convert something cold to hot or hot to cold. So taking cold water and boiling it is far more energy consumption than having something that's already lukewarm and making it boiling. That's much easier for it to do. So the same applies with heating your entire house. Taking a stone cold house and heating the whole place up from scratch is very heat inefficient. Containing the heat that was already there from yesterday is much better for the environment and much better way to do it. But we tend to put in certain size windows and things. A lot of people would say put in bigger windows to trap more of the sun coming in and then try and keep the heat in. That's what conservatories do, if you think of it. That's more what we need in this country. The general public in Ireland at least 10 years from owning an EV because of affordability. Correct. The price of them is very expensive. And we've already spent, the government has already spent well in excess of €61 million in grants to people to buy EVs. And most people who bought EVs could afford to buy EVs. There are people who already had enough money to do it. So they got the grant as well. So we've spent 62 million at this stage to try and get them. It's crazy. It's crazy to think how much we've already spent on these things. Don't forget, there are grants that you can get. I will be talking at the Ideal Home Show this year. And the guys who provide the grants for everything, all the energy grants, come along to that. You can sit down and talk to them about it. They're pretty interesting people to talk to you about the grants that you're able to get. And that includes solar PV, battery technology, home insulation, putting stuff into your walls and older houses to make it better. There are grants, certain grants available for that. And if you play the system, I think you would probably get some of those grants out of it as well. But if you want to come along to the Ideal Home Show, I will be doing a talk every day over that weekend about electric vehicles, about future transport. It's quite an in-depth talk. It's about 30 minutes and I put it up last time on YouTube, but I'm rewriting a brand new one for this autumn to go up with it again. So it won't be the same talk I gave in the first place. But certainly you could bring a friend to come along to it and sit down and chat, and I can meet you at it. And that's on in the Ideal Home Show. I think it's October. You come along to that. It's definitely worth going on. But that's where you can find a lot about your grants. All the people from the SEAI are there, and they have their own stand, and you can come up to them and talk to them about getting the grants and stuff. It's pretty interesting stuff. A lot of people are doing it this year. Anyway, Smashy Rashy says diesel in its bollocks dead. I love my dirty diesel. I don't know if it's dead, but I think it's on the way out for personal use cars. I really don't think in the next 5 years we're going to sell half as many, even a tiny proportion of diesels will be out there in the next 5 or 6 years. Charlie Back says, what's your thoughts on hybrid petrol cars? They're pretty good, most of them. Considered a small fuel tank, low range, driving on petrol, electric, considered hybrid car, but went diesel since we're doing about 20,000 kilometers a year. Okay, so diesel for me these days, Charlie, because of the price difference, diesel's a lot more expensive to pumps than petrol. Diesel's more expensive to service. Diesel's like a normal service on a petrol engine is about 150, 200 euro, 250 quid. Diesel's 350, 450, and the rest if something's wrong with the car. So diesel in itself can be actually more expensive to run if you take in all the running costs attached to it. Now, if you start looking at hybrid, so you have mild hybrid, get rid of them. They're useless. I have yet to find a mild hybrid out there that does absolutely anything to the engine other than running the bloody lights. That's all a mild hybrid seems to do. There is some assistance up to certain speeds and stuff. It's all bullshit as far as I can see. So I would suggest go either with a plug-in hybrid, a full plug-in hybrid, and some of the more modern ones have pretty good range on them. Or you could go for something like one of the Toyota hybrids who are pretty good, Toyota and Lexus, who are pretty good at getting the best from a hybrid engine. Or just go all electric. 20,000 kilometers a year is very easily achieved on an electric car, as long as you don't have to charge at charge points out there. Charge points are still a bit of rubbish. But other than that, pretty good. If you're in the UK, you might be in the UK, I have a lot of UK audience members. You might have a little bit better time with the charge points. A lot of charge points are just pay as you go. Just use your Apple Pay and go dink and off you go. We're still half in the dark ages here trying to get you to sign up to pay them 20 quid a month and all this. It's just crap. John Finnerty says, agree 100% on the festival tends to catch environmental crime. It is, John. I'm telling you, that isn't. If you want to look right now, this moment, at all of the environmental disasters we've had, that is an environmental disaster. Electric Picnic and the tents. Every year we've been posting things about the tents and about the problems that are happening over there. And I'm telling you, it has not gotten any better. It's still the same. It's an environmental disaster. You can't buy 0% alcohol before 12 because it's alcohol. Go away. I didn't even think of that, Kevin. I think you can, though, can't you? It's outside the little... Aldi have it outside the place where you buy the alcohol. Surely you can buy 0% alcohol. By the way, 0% alcohol is not actually zero. Just so you know. It's not quite. There's 0.02% or something alcohol in it. 200,000 kilometers is nothing. That's shocking. That's about the BMW 1200. That isn't very much for that car. Or that motorbike. Alcohol is highly taxed in the UK, so are alcohol-free beers, wines, and spirits cost the same as good stuff. Pretty much, I was looking at Moretti, so a beer that I kind of like, as not every day, but I like as a treat, is Moretti. I know it's not really an Italian beer, but it tastes nice. It's a nice thing to drink in a pub. It's about $6.50, I think, in the local pub to buy a pint. Now, if you go into, is it Tesco's, I think, have it in a sort of a 6-pack of small York. It's about £6 for 4 bottles of it, I think. The non-alcoholic one is 4 bottles for €6 as well. So it's the same price for non-alcoholic and alcoholic. I haven't tasted a non-alcoholic one. The person who put me onto the Moretti was actually Adam Buxton. I was listening to a podcast one day and he said that he tries to fool his brain into not drinking on weeknights. And so he gets non-alcoholic Moretti, which feels like a beer because you feel like you're drinking a beer. And, you know, you fool your head into it, into thinking you're drinking something when you're not really drinking anything, just a fizzy drink. In the UK, they put cycle lanes in roads in London, yet where I live, we have 390 kilometres of cycle tracked, kept away from roads and paths, yet cyclists use roads and pavements. Well, as a cyclist, I can say, first of all, you want to go somewhere that's interesting if you're not commuting. And if you are commuting, you want to go somewhere that's more direct. And some people just don't feel safe. Let's be serious. Some of those cycle tracks that I've cycled on recently, down in Waterford and all, where you cycle, they're beautiful things. But there's big stretches of it that are quite lonely. And that loneliness cuts in your brain after a bit. And you kind of think, God, am I safe here? Like when I'm cycling along on my own. So some people just want to be in the traffic where they can be seen. They want to be there. And other people just don't. Google Maps don't have a lot of these cycle lanes. Nothing has much of these cycle lanes. So it's kind of strange when people just see a road to see that's going where it generally wanted to go and off to go on that road. And that's all they think about, you know. Pair character stretching his arm forward. Oh, that's sorry. It's put your whatever you said in this, Kevin, whatever you said in the super chat. The machine here, look at that thing, has just kind of put something. It's a pair character stretching his arm forward and resting his thumb up. That's hilarious. That's AI for you. There's Etienne. Hello, Etienne. How are you doing? DF1204 says, when we all in EVs, the UK government will have to replace all the lost petrol diesel duty somewhere. It's already happening here. It's a good chunk. £26 billion in 21-22. Business rates was 22 billion and cigarettes, alcohol was 23 billion. Fuel duty, alcohol, cigarettes and business rates combined is higher than corporation tax contributions. That is mad. If you start thinking about how much cars make for the government in stealth taxes, in little taxes that are attached to what feeds your car. So what I mean is not your car directly, but the fuel taxes, the tax, the motor tax, the insurance tax. You know, when you start looking at all the things that are taxed around the edge of what you do, if you just stopped driving tomorrow, sold your car and gave up everything, walked away from it, you would probably save a couple of grand a year in insurance and tax alone, not including fuel. If your fuel, it could be thousands, it could be 20 grand if you start taking in fuel, depending on what you do. So it's scary to think how much money we spend on our passion, but how much money we have to spend on just commuting from one place, just getting from one place to the other is also a huge big deal. So the amount of money that comes in, so you can imagine when we get rid of petrol and diesel, which is what the target has been for now for the last few years. We're talking about 2025, no more petrol and diesel engines, 2030, complete cut off petrol and diesel engines. You can see where this is all going to go now. You can see how it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a huge problem. How do we get where we're going? Always happy to help with the edit work. Oh yeah? Oh, that's all right. You want to be editing? I'll give you a plan today. Unfortunately, I do shoot for myself to edit. So I have a funny way of not editing, but I have a funny way of shooting it. So I kind of know what's the best take from the shoot. So I already sit down and go, that's a bit like, obviously I'm going to use that. The grants are on PV system. Correct. You get grants for solar PV. It's not going to cover everything. The grant is going to release some sort of money off it. James King says, I'm an American and I've been living in Europe for 5 years. I can't believe the tax you all pay. It's rather shocking. I can't believe you pay 20% to 23% sales tax on a car and 21% on a house. That's only the beginning of it. Yes, America does certainly pay a lot less tax depending on the state you're in, depending on what it is. Some taxes in America are very clear. So if you're buying something in a shop, it says $10. You go to the counter and the girl says $10 plus the tax, the state tax and all these things you can put on top of it. Suddenly it's $25 you're paying, not 10. But on the flip side of that, we get a lot of stuff that's free in Europe. So if I fly to a different country, become sick there, I can go to hospital there and I would pay the rates from home. There's all kinds of little things, little bonuses that work in our favour. There's good and bad on both sides, but we do pay a phenomenal amount of tax here, yeah. EV grants are not help those who can't afford the EV to buy one. How do you get people into EVs if they can't afford to buy one? Like, how do you get them out of the petrol and diesel cars if they can't afford to buy an EV? So you have to, the grants should be there to help people make a decision to make EVs more affordable, but they're not. The EVs are not more affordable. They're more expensive by a considerable amount. And even as a second-hand car, they're holding their value so well because there's so little of them, so shortage of them, that the big problem is we can't afford to buy even a second-hand car now at this stage. It's kind of weird. We're at the halfway point. Thank you very much. We're halfway through today's broadcast already. And I need you to click the like button, share button, subscribe button, tell people about it. That tea is cold now. But tell people about the stream. See if anybody wants to get involved. They can get involved here. It's fine. Thankfully, I get tax exemption. Otherwise, I wouldn't buy anything. Do you, James? Well, you're lucky to get a tax exemption. There is tax exemption for all kinds of things. Just depends on who you are and how well up you are on accounting things. But if you want to support the channel, you can. There's plenty of ways to do so in the links down below. Super Chats is the one that's absolutely straight here, right on this moment. You can also use PayPal, Patreon, any of the ways around. But like, share, subscribe are all completely free to you. They don't cost nothing. Now would be a good time to insert ads. Look at that thing. How do I do that? The thing says I should insert an ad. Oh my God, I just inserted an ad. Terrible sorry, I didn't mean to insert an ad. But there's an ad after just playing right now. I'm sure we'll be back after the ad, when the ads are playing again. I didn't even know you could do that. Anyway, moving on. Jim Shed, great to see you back. I'm just checking in, say hello. I'm off to Garth Brooks in the rain poncho at the ready. Regards, Jim Shed. Let's hope that's going to be a good night for you, Jim Shed. I'm sure it'll be a great night. He's put on some great shows, some lovely stuff coming out on social media about him. He's much more popular here than he is in other countries, you know. Seriously, seriously. If I had to get 60 grand for the petrol, I can afford an EV, but the grant nudges me towards an EV. If you're getting a 60,000 euro petrol car, I know, I understand. That's why the petrol and diesel cars has gone up in price. But if you're looking about getting a new car right now, I tell you what, we'll look because I actually put a question up today on my YouTube channel, and on my YouTube channel, 282 votes have come in over 3 hours. That's all. It's only been up 3 hours. It's a little thing to ask. Will you order a new car for 2023? The answers I put up was yes, I'm buying a new car. 15% of people said that. Yes, I'm buying a new car. 13% said no, I'll wait and see how the finance goes. 18% said I'm going to be buying a second-hand car, but a massive 54% of the respondents to that little quiz said that they're not going to buy any car in 2023. Any car. That means used or otherwise. They're just not going to buy a new car. End of story. So, or buy a different car. So they're going to hold on to the cars they've gotten. And that's an interesting answer when you start looking at that. That's well over half of the respondents. That's a lot of people. Why is there one? There's a name that's popping into the chat over here, but it's not popping into my chat over here. That is very strange. And it is. It's popping in. It's just popping in a different color. That's very weird. Anyway, sorry. It's about reducing emissions. Is at the end. You're right too. I suggest no EV grant unless you install a PV system at home. Well, do you know how much a PV system is? What my point is not forgetting about emissions. We talked about emissions. We talked about cancers and how much it costs in this stream. I talked about that, but people just haven't got that kind of money. You could there's no way if I put 20 grand into this house, I'm ever going to see it back out again. There's not a hope. And I know you can do it for the right reasons, and the right reasons, of course, is for emissions and for trying to get our carbon emissions down. That's great, but you have to think about your family when you put food on the table. This is very expensive to do solar PV. It's also very expensive to start putting electric cars on the market. I mean, charging a car at home has become quite an expense here. I get electric cars all the time, and a lot of them end up getting charged, and I can really see it in my ESP bill. I mean, really see it. And I know you can get night rate meters, and I do have a smart meter outside and I can convert over, but I don't actually own an electric car, so I don't want my normal rate to go up. It doesn't make a lot of sense in that respect. So it's very hard to say you should or you shouldn't go that way. It's just a very difficult way to do it. David Cavanagh says Volkswagen brand boss predicts greater price parity between electric and ICE cars. This will occur due to rising costs of new petrol. That's what I was just going to say. That rising petrol costs of new petrol and diesel models in the coming years. Correctamundo, David. What they're essentially doing is they're finding it very hard to make electric cars cheaper. And so they've stopped making them cheaper. So that's why a Nissan Ariya costs 78,000 or 74,000 for the top spec one, and the other one has a small grant on it. So what they've done is made one. They're bringing up the price of petrol and diesel to compensate for that. Oh my God, my wife has appeared. I've just remarked the fact that I had tea that I had earlier on. It's still there and it's stone cold now. I'm cold tea, but my wife has brought me hot coffee. That sounds rude. There was a little section in an old video game where it was called Hot Coffee. But anyway, back to petrol and diesel models in the coming years. They have predictably raised the price of petrol and diesel model cars over the last 3 or 4 years since there was an electric alternative. And of course, if you look at Volkswagen themselves, who are now an electric company, they sell electricity. They have done deals with electricity. They will install a home charge electric. The idea they had last year was to actually take over your electricity supply to your house, which is also possible. And essentially, they're getting rid of the diesel engine, and they're just going to go, no, we're not doing it anymore. The commercial section will stay there. And the same for petrol engines. They'll start disappearing. They'll start getting them out of them. The hybrid part will start disappearing. And that will continue going. So they'll just raise the price of it eventually until eventually the electric cars are more affordable. Sean Murray says, mild hybrid battery wouldn't power a nose trimmer. Correctamundo. I have found no mild hybrid cars that are actually even remotely interesting. It just seems like something heavy in the boot. You know, if you put a bag of cement in the boot, that's essentially what they're after doing. There's another battery in there. And it's I don't know if it was a scam or what. I don't know. It was to get around some sort of emissions joke. That's really what was going on. As far as I'm concerned, it was to do with emissions and lowering your emission stuff. Philip Shannon says, hi Bob, what's the story with Mama competitions? I'm not involved in that anymore. I was paid for a couple of months to advertise them, and I did that, and I'm not involved in any of the draw or anything like that. For the golf end on the 2nd of September, no winner. There was a winner announced. The winner was in touch with me on Instagram. There was a winner for sure, and I can't remember what the person. I can't give what the person's name. I can't do that. That would be bad GDPR. But there is definitely a winner. There was definitely a winner announced for the golf. I don't think the tickets were sold out for the golf. Like I say, a couple of months ago or a month ago or so, I finished with Mammon. That was the end of me promoting Mammon. I don't know if Jason McConnell's still with Mammon. I know it's written all over his car, so maybe he's still with them, but I'm not, so I don't really have they were sound enough. There was nothing dodgy about them. They were giving out the cars. For sure the car existed. I drove the car. It definitely existed. And I know the owner of the car. There's an awful lot there, so it's definitely all there. But there was definitely a winner announced, Philip, and it was a live draw on Facebook. But I'm not involved in them anymore, so I don't know what the winner's name was. I know they were in touch with me on Instagram, that's it. Retro Rebuild. Where's all the money going from our taxes that the government pulls in? An unemployment rate is lowest in years. Doesn't add up. Our government needs to put out. Well, so I'm more of a fan of adjusting the rich tax. The bit at the top of the tax needs to change. Okay, it's corporation tax. The big one is taxing huge corporations in this country properly and taxing energy use. I mean, seriously, we should be looking at a special, not a special tax, an actual tax on the people who use the most electricity. If you're going to push the price up of power all across the country, well, then you got to start taxing the people who are using the most. Let's look at the data centers. And I know we all need data centers. I'm with you 100%. This live broadcast would not exist without data centers. Gmail would not exist without data centers, neither would Facebook or any of those things. None of those things would exist. So we need to have them, but at the same time, they're gobbling a lot of our electricity. So they should be paying a higher rate for all of that sort of stuff. And the same applies for everybody doing it out there right now. The word billionaire should never exist. How many private jets are in the sky the whole time? I follow a Twitter account that tweets the date at the times of all of the private jets that take off and land all over the world. And I don't know what it's called, I can't remember, but I see it the whole time. And the amount of people who take 30-minute private jet flights that are rich and famous people who own a private jet, there's one of them there. Blake Shelton's jet took off from Ardmore, Oklahoma, US, and returned to Ardmore Municipal Airport. So just they just tweet that. It's called Celebrity Jets. You want to follow it. It's an automated account. And it's frightening when you start seeing how much money is just being burned off by people who they make so much money. They have so much money in the account to have a private jet, and it's cheaper for them to take a private jet for an 18-minute flight than it is to take a taxi or a car or anything else. It just should jump in a private jet and go. So we are taxing the wrong people, and we're pushing the wrong individuals the whole time. And in that respect, there's no good way out of that one. We need to start taxing the right individuals and stop taxing the people who can or not afford it anymore. Simple as that. Our employment rate is very good. I think we're over 90% employment here because there's just so many little jobs around that people can do, but our wages are crap. Like, we have absolutely rubbish unionized system here. We only seem to have two unions, and they just seem to be on the side of big industry. We don't make enough money. People don't make enough money. Minimum wage in this country, and we should never have different minimum wages. People under 16 get paid differently. Did you know that? Or people under 18 get paid differently. Did you know that? We have two minimum wages in this country, not one. Everybody should be paid the same, because you're encouraged then as a business to hire people who are younger because you can pay them less than minimum wage. If you hire someone my age, you have to pay them at least the minimum wage, and then they're always going to look for more. So So we have it completely upside down. It's not going to work. DF says, technical question, what do you use to edit, Bob, and jump between Final Cut Pro and Premiere? I always use Final Cut Pro. I swear to God, Final Cut Pro is forget about Premiere. I have lost hours of my life dealing with Premiere crashes, trying to recover stuff, or just trying to figure out how to do something. It's so frustrating. Final Cut Pro in the last couple of years has become a phenomenal editing piece of kit. I use it. My MacBook Pro, what I'm talking on right now is a MacBook Pro right here, an M1 from last year or the year before even. That's sitting right here, and I have a big screen in front of me that's a Hewlett-Packard screen. It's a 23-inch NVIDIA G-Sync gaming monitor, actually, and I use that as a big monitor. HDMI cable is plugged into this. I have the Rode desk, which runs across another cable, USB-C, into an Anker USB-C converter here, and the whole lot runs together off an SSD drive, and I can essentially do everything I ever want to do, and it all works on a laptop. And when I travel, I just bring the laptop. Just the laptop comes with me, and the hard drive, and the screen stays where it is, and the Rode yoke stays where it is. That's how I do it all. That, and I film everything on. I have a bag of tricks here that I bring everywhere. It's my tool bag that has all my little cameras in it. I'm not sure if any of you are even interested in it, but it is like a technical expose. So I have a DJI Pocket 2. I have these Sony bullet cams, X3000 bullet cams. I have a GoPro Hero 9. They're rubbish. Just I'll tell you that. Crashed a lot. I have the Rode mics, 3 mics that are in there, and I have a Sony A6600 camera and a couple of tripods and things, and various little doodads and stuff in there that makes me film all the stuff. Then I gather it all together and film it all, put it all on hard drives and things around the place, and put out a video a week. And I've done so for about 12 years now. So it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. It's a bit more streamlined than it used to be, but it's still a lot of work. Mulhall Man says, hi, Euro sign. Thanks. Put some Euro where your mouth is. Etienne says, super sticker. Oh yeah, you gave me super sticker. Shiba dog with a big smile on his face, tilting his head. It's so weird. The thing is trying to write in English what the little symbol is. That's what's going on there right now. Andy Burns says, Bob, what about LPG gas? 92 cents a litre at the moment. A very clean, even engine oil will still be clean after 10,000 kilometres. It's very good. It's still burning stuff, so it still has a CO2 emission, but the CO2 emissions would be lower from LPG gas, and it is cheaper to buy, but it's quite hard to find an LPG station. There's one here in Emo, the petrol station in Emo. I can't name it right now, but it's a really good one. Good coffee in there. They have LPG in all the time. And you can get LPG there, but it's still quite expensive. Unless your car is already equipped for LPG, it's quite a bit of an expense converting to run an LPG. There's a big tank that has to go in the boot, and to connect them, screw it all to the ground, and put cables and wires and all sorts of stuff. So a bit of a to save for the amount of money you're going to save with it. It's kind of scary, but with the price of petrol and diesel at the moment, you might save quite a bit if you do a lot of miles. DS says, in your latest Kia video was such a blast. See that snippet from the early days. Amazing how fast time has flown by. I couldn't believe it. I did the Kia video, so I've been reviewing Kia Sportage for 10 years or something, 10 or 11 years, whatever it was. It was absolutely weird to go back to that video and see the same place exists. So I filmed that again in exactly the same spot. So it's very strange to see how that place has changed and yet remain the same in that kind of 10 or 15 years. Not that much has happened there. But then just to see how long I've been reviewing one model of a car and how far the car has come along. Like what exciting about it back then is how it drove and how easy it was to use a radio and the air conditioning. There was no touchscreens. There was no smart bit of it. It was just the standard stuff that was in it. It was kind of weird to look at. But it was good though. It's nice to go back. Good one. Waiting for smart meter. What will it do for me, please? Nothing. Smart meter does absolutely nothing on its own, but you can sign up for certain things with your energy company. So with a smart meter, you can certainly sign up to have off-peak and on-peak hours, night rates, special times between these 2 hours. You can pay more or less for electricity. That's all available through smart meters. Other than that, a smart meter in itself does absolutely nothing to your electricity bill. You put it in and it stays the same. So there's nothing really scary. I see a lot of TikToks about, I turned down my smart meter. I would not get it in. God help us. I don't want to know what I'm doing. But they already know what you're doing. It's just counting numbers. That's all. It's a rate versus how much numbers you use. But Smart Meter does open a lot of options for people to do. So you can sign up for special EV plans that turn down the electricity price at night time, like night rate. Some of them put up the rate between 5 and 8, 5 and 7 or something. I saw a rate the other day between 5 and 7. You pay nearly double your rate. Don't do that. Hellhound says toss AMG 4, same price as the base model Ford Focus UK, approximately 25 grand. They're not brilliant to drive. Let's be serious. MG is not going to be a fantastic yoke to drive. I think they're a little bit, from the pictures I've seen of where they're going with the design, I think it's a little bit too busy. I think it's not really a good European design. I think you'll buy an MG because of the value for money. And that's okay, because Dacia competes in that zone. Renault to some degree, the bottom entry Zoe competes in that sort of zone. So you get a lot of car for the value, but I just don't know, would you buy it to replace a Focus, which would be good to drive? You know what I mean? It'd be really good entertainment drive. Ford build great cars for driving. So I don't know whether you'd buy one over the other for that reason. Owen Kelly says, just saw my BMW 520 M Sport 192, good car. Should I hold for a new car to see how the market goes for I buy a new car? What should I go in terms of power plant, EV, HB? Right now, Owen, to be honest with you, if you're doing about 20 to 30,000 kilometers a year and you're getting a home charger in, you're willing to do that, I would buy an electric car and be done with it. Because no matter where petrol and diesel prices go, electricity is something you can control the price of. So you're able to swap between electric companies and do the best deal for your household. Whereas with petrol and diesel, you're subject to whatever petrol stations want to do to you. So whatever way they want to ride you next is the way that they're going to charge those prices. So right now, I'm telling people that it's time to transfer over to electric cars, but with a big proviso. And I'm going to put this very important proviso. If you currently have one car in the house and you're going to add an electric car to that household and you're driving a petrol diesel, you're going to save nothing. Right? You're actually going to put the price of everything up because you just added a car to your household. So it means you're going to pay a higher electricity bill and so on, and you're actually making matters worse. But if you're replacing a petrol diesel car like your diesel M20 520D, then you're going to save money. You go to 4 Series, there's other models coming from BMW, but there's other brands out there who are doing full electric cars right now. You could easily move to one of those. 30,000 kilometers a year. You won't notice it. I have the Skoda Enyaq 4x4 this week. It came to me fully charged on Tuesday or Wednesday. I haven't charged it up yet. I had the Mercedes EQE last week. One of the best electric cars I've driven in years. It does 650 kilometers range. I charged it once in the whole week. Once. And I did huge mileage in it. Airport run. Went to film with Dave O'Queeve. We filmed up in Wicklow. Went to Dublin for a meeting. Still no chargers. Just charge up to bring it back. So you can save a fortune with these modern electric cars, particularly if you buy something interesting like those Mercedes EQE. I know it's expensive, but God, the range is brilliant. EV cars are expensive, but running costs are much more down on compared to ICE cars, but not on EV petrol heads. Friends don't believe it. How to convince them to get into EVs? There's no way to convince people into EVs. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way for you. If you want to be driving a petrol car and you're enjoying it, sure, drive it. It's your money if you want to spend it that way. You can do what you want with it. If you're driving a diesel car and you're enjoying it, well, just go and keep on enjoying it. You don't need to encourage it. So if they want to get into it, they'll get into electric cars because that's the nature of humans. We move about between things. We try and get electric cars and, we enjoy them too. Some electric cars are dreary to drive. Dead honest with you, I find a lot of them quite dreary. They're just white goods. They're just designed to get you to and from work. They're not meant to be very exciting to drive. A lot of them have exciting buttons to press and playing Apple Music or something. There's exciting stuff in that stuff, but the vast majority of electric cars are fairly bog standard to drive, and some of them are ugly. They just don't look good, and some of them will age terribly. I think in the next couple of years, when people start to really look at the used car market for electric cars, they look at some of these electric cars that are coming out now and go, that's just ugly. Like, why would you even buy one of them? It's horrible looking. I think that's going to happen a lot more than you think. DF says, recently moved from more rural area and wind farms everywhere. Apparently they're getting 200 quid a year subsidised through energy bill for a lifetime of the farm. And we experienced something similar. There is certainly subsidies for people putting in wind farms and trees around them. There was a couple of stuff on Midlands 103 recently where a person was complaining about the noise that a wind farm makes, that you think when you're driving by in a car, it's just a big propeller turning, it doesn't make any noise. But actually, when you live near them, seemingly they make ground noise, to make noise in the ground underneath themselves, and it comes up through people's houses. So I don't know how. I've been right beside some of them. We were in Holland and in somewhere else as well, where we're driving on the road. We're driving by. We're in the wind farm. In it, the road ran through the middle of it. You could pull over and walk up beside it, and it was running. I couldn't hear a damn thing from it, but I don't live beside it. Graham Cullen says, new cars. This month will be my final finance payment. No way I'll be looking at a new car until the cost of living is sorted out. Mazda 2 is 3.5 years old. I'll be looking good for another 6.5 years. Mazda 2 is a great car. Always loved a Mazda 2. I think, Graham, a lot of people are in exactly the same situation, not willing to take on or saddle themselves with more debt to just update their car by a few years. And I actually think I think that will spill over into people who are just about ready to change. People at the 7, 8, 9 year mark who would normally flip over and buy something else, I think might just hang on for another 12 months. Like I say, I was listening to Euronews this morning, very interesting conversation with the central bank governor of Portugal, who was saying by January 2023, we should be looking to get out of this recession immediately. And so they really are pushing very hard to try and get this recession, if it's going to be a recession, to get into it and get out of it very quickly, and to get more stable prices coming down for stuff, because everybody's losing money. Every business is losing money. Everybody's in trouble in that respect. So I think that's going to happen to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people will be putting off purchasing any large purchases. And I think even Aidan Doyle, who's he's retiring out of it, sort of, out of the marketing manager position for Kia. He was talking about people who were on the fence about what they change to. Do they go for a big family holiday, or do they buy a new car? That's kind of where the decision, both those things will not happen. So you're talking about putting a 10 or 15 grand deposit down on a car, but maybe the family would want a holiday instead of that. And that becomes then a 5 or 6 grand holiday, and the rest would just wait another 12 months, we build it up again and we put another deposit down. So I think that's kind of happening as well. James did not decide about why do you think manufacturers charge so lux. I don't know what that means. What's so lux? Is that luxury or something? I don't know. I don't know what that means. A working plastic manufacturer, says Retro Rebuild, and the price of electric bill used to be 1 million a year. Now it's over 3 million, and just pushed into customers' taxing company will land on our head. That, unfortunately, is where the prices are actually being driven from. I think a lot of those prices that we're looking at right now is because the manufacturer is now paying more for energy, is going to raise the price. And if you remember last year when we're doing the Sunday service every week I was telling you that once the price of petrol and diesel takes effect in the businesses who deliver stuff, get things delivered back, everything's going to go up in price. So that's the truck that takes the stuff from Little Germany to the port, to bring it over to Ireland on the ferry, and the ferry is paying more for diesel, the truck pays more for diesel, then the delivery guy on this end pays more for diesel, then the guy that takes it from the little centre in Newbridge to bring it around the country, they pay more for it. Everything goes up in price because the transport cost has risen for everything. And that's exactly the same for Retro Rebuild here, where they're a manufacturer of something. So they're taking raw materials and turning it into something we use every day. And their cost for doing that has risen, which means that we're sitting back going, yeah, well, it's okay. This plastic thing has cost me $5.99 now. Next year it's going to be $7.99. That means your money, if you were earning 20 grand a year, you're not earning 20 grand a year anymore. Now you're earning 15 grand a year. It still says 20, but it's not worth the same it used to be. That's called inflation. That's how your money disappears. That's how your €1 is now worth 75 cents. It still says €1 on the coin, but it only buys you 75 cents worth of stuff they would have bought last year. And that's how inflation works. So that's going to continue happening. I've seen that repeated. Even small little businesses, small little coffee shops are now paying 9 and 10 grand for 3 months electricity. This is not sustainable. Energy prices are not sustainable. And we hear nothing from government departments as to what exactly they're going to do. There's no concrete information coming out saying, we're going to put a price cap on, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do something else. Nothing is being done at the moment by any of them because they're all fairly clueless and kind of out of touch. Another one I want to mention as well is we bought school books. My daughter Hannah has started in first year. We had to buy the school books. We also had to buy an iPad, not an iPad, Apple iPad. It's an Android device, and that's a requirement. I don't remember how much that was. It was very expensive. We bought it. And all of the books, so when you buy the physical book, you get a code in the physical book that you put into the iPad thing. And that gives you the book. on the digital version. And we spent a fortune on buying books, physical books that I swear to God, if you got a wheelbarrow, you wouldn't carry the things around the place with you. Huge amount of books. And they go into class and they're asked to open the pad thing. It's the pad they open. They don't open the book. They don't do anything with the book. Why do we have books now? Why do we spend so much on books? It's crazy money. Like it's just dead money. Anyway, it annoyed me to how much we're actually spending on these bloody books and how much tax we're paying for that sort of stuff. And it all comes in a digital format. It's a PDF anyway. Automotive L3 says the other day a guy rang into a radio debate about tax. His idea was in the UK we have 1.2 million people earning over 100,000. Remove their tax break, costing $2,500, makes $6 billion. I know. I see. So there's the reason we don't. So a lot of people ask why we don't tax the shit out of very rich people or people who are earning good salaries. Those people are the people that your politicians will meet at parties. That's what it comes down to. That's a lot of it. Some of that will happen. Those people are also voters. Those people are also influencers. They'll influence those around them to vote. And so if you go after them in any meaningful way, then you're kind of going, what am I going to do? I will never get elected again. If I'm the guy to come in and said these rich people had to pay more tax, and then they pay more tax and they go, well, I'm never going to vote for you again. So there's this chicken and egg situation where you have to tax. It's just easier to go PAYE tax get up by 1%, because that just taxes everyone. Anyone who's on PAYE is on the, and that includes self-employed people, because I'm PAYE as well. I just pay myself. It's the only difference. So the problem is, who do you tax and where do you get the tax money from? Big faceless corporate entities like Facebook should be taxed to oblivion. By the way, I'm not on Facebook anymore. If you look at me on Facebook, I don't use it. I don't miss it. I'm very happy to be off it. It's taken me a little while to get used to the idea of not being on Facebook. You feel like you're missing something for a little bit. Then you realize you're missing nothing. Nothing. There is no conversation on Facebook that's worth having anymore. It is a place for angry people to hang out and say angry things. That's what Facebook does very, very well. I spoke to a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he said to me that the algorithm is set up on Facebook to promote and antagonize. That was the word he used. Promote and antagonize. Very interesting the way he put it, in that if the two of us went to a party, me and you, the viewer here, went to the party, right? And I went on to Facebook after the party and said, it was a lovely party, thanks very much. That's it. Now, I wouldn't get much information. I wouldn't get much communication. People would just go, yeah, thanks for coming. That's all. But if Billy or Pat or Jimmy or Connor here said to me, went on to Facebook afterward, a boss party was crap and I don't like Jimmy, he was an absolute useless individual. That would get a lot of information, right? Get a lot of people jumping on that going, how dare you say that about my party, right? So antagonistic stuff shares better on Facebook than anywhere. And so that's why I don't miss it whatsoever. And Conor Hanley says, well said, but he might have said well said a little while ago. James the Nut says, why do manufacturers charge so much for EV when the less parts and labour to build it? It's not the parts and labour to build it cost the price, it's the actual purchase of the batteries. So car companies, James, used to make the engines themselves, the actual diesel and petrol engines that did the cars. They had control over the parts, over how much it costs, how many employees were involved in making it, on starting them up, giving birth to the engines, they call it, starting them up for the first time, putting it in, all that, they control of all that stuff. But batteries are bought in. So take, for instance, Kia and Hyundai. They buy their batteries from Siemens. It's not, they don't make the batteries. They've done a deal with Siemens to buy the batteries there. MG make their own, not their own battery, but they have a Chinese company that did a deal with to make their Geely have bought into a battery company. So the cost of production of the battery part is a third party nearly. It's like buying in from a wholesaler. It gets more expensive. That's one of the main reasons why electric cars are more expensive to purchase than a petrol and diesel alternative. Same, a corporation tax company earns over 100 million, raised corporation tax from 19 to 21, that makes another 6 billion. It's very straightforward. And the rationale why they say that corporate tax, you can't touch it, is because the corporate company would up sticks and move to another country where the corporate taxation is lower, which is why they want to enter into a harmonisation of the corporate tax across the EU, which I think we have entered into now, which is very odd to think about, because at the stroke of a pen somewhere out in deepest, darkest New York, some corporate company goes, nah, Ireland, it costs too much to do business there. gone. They're gone to India. They're gone to where, and that's the problem. They've no loyalty. They've no reason to be loyal in this country. The only thing we ever had that went in our favor is we have a highly educated English-speaking population, and we probably speak the best English out of the entire EU. As English speakers go, we're very good. We have a very good ear for listening to other people who don't speak English as a first language. Whereas you find French people listen to someone speaking English, they have to slow down for them. Whereas if a French person spoke English to me, I could just speak it anyway. I'll figure out what you're talking about. So we're pretty good at that. That was our main thing, but that's changed. Every international trip I go on to right now, most of the international trips are now held in entirely English. So you find you don't have to put the headphones on anymore. They all speak English now. So it's right across the EU now. English is taught as a secondary language in pretty much every EU country, and they're pretty good at it. We're not alone anymore. So you could drive Facebook, Microsoft, Dell, and all the rest of them out of this country by changing the corporation tax. But I think it's a risk worth taking. I actually do think it is. I think we need to make money somewhere, and it certainly isn't coming in from the PAYE people. Another problem with minimum wages goes up and someone who gets slightly more wages stays the same. It's a joke. But every wages goes up. Correct. So if you're on what that means realistically is, and I know everyone thinks minimum wage is the absolute minimum that you can survive on. That's what minimum wage is. So if minimum wage, and I'm not sure what it is now, I think it's €11.90 or something. Is it €11.90 or €12 or something like that? Let's just say it's €12, right? And me as a government department come in and go, we're raising the minimum wage to €13 an hour. That's €1. Doesn't sound like much for a minimum wage person. That's going to really mean an awful lot. But if you're on €15 an hour, so you're not on the minimum wage, or I'm paying you $12.50 an hour, which is still not the minimum wage, you get nothing. You're just going to go up by 50 cents. But everybody, you are now on the minimum wage. But I was paying you above minimum wage when you started first. Now you're on the minimum wage. If you're on a 14 quid an hour, you got nothing out of that. You lost €1. That's what happened to you. So you go into the boss and you go, they got €1 raise. Where's my €1 raise? So now I have to put you on €15 now. So it becomes this race that you're moving the minimum wage up, but you're also moving anyone who's in an ass's roar of a minimum wage up as well, and then anyone who's on like the 20 quid an hour stuff, they don't get anything anyway. So it's a kind of there's a balance in that has to be pulled over. But for manufacturers, for employers, it's getting expensive, very, very expensive. I would have said last year to hire a camera person and have them with you all day, no editing, just someone who's going to film, they'll turn up with their own kit and they'll film the thing, would have been at least 500 or 600 quid a day easily. And the rest, if they were really good, you maybe pay 800 or 900 quid a day for someone who's really, really good. It comes with like drones and licenses and all that stuff. Very expensive. Now, I'm telling you now, most of those camera people will be closer to €1,000 now, because the cost of transporting themselves in their car, the cost to just stay in on a set or location or whatever it is for 12 or 13 hours at a time, the cost of lunch has risen, the cost of everything, even getting your accountant at the end of the year has gone up. Everything is going up. So the price of everything going up means the price of everything is going to be knocked on going up with it. Daniel wants says, hi Bob, I have a 2018 Passat Highline DSG 2-litre TDI. Unfortunately, they don't make Passat Saloon anymore. And I was thinking of Renault Arcana 1.3 TCE, just some difference in engine. Can I ask you opinion on Arcana? Arcana's, it's okay. Yeah, I like Arcana. It feels luxurious. It's going to feel like an entirely different car from what you're after buying. Like, they don't even remotely drive like one another. But Arcana's a nice looking car. It seems to drive okay. 1.3 is a very small engine for such a big vehicle, though. I would start really seriously, because you have to think about the weight ratio. Forget about 140. Horsepower can be manipulated with turbos and superchargers. Even fuel stuff can manipulate your horsepower, right? So think of the actual size of an engine versus the actual weight of the car. That's what you're looking for, because that's the longevity of an engine. So look at the torque figures, look at the displacement figures. They're the ones that will actually govern how much fuel you're going to use. Horsepower is a weird metric at the best of times, because it doesn't really mean a lot to speed and doesn't really mean a lot to get knots 60 times. That's all torque. So 140 horsepower sounds okay, but 1.3 doesn't sound so great to me. And the car's okay though. It's Regal says, Bob, very hard to pick out a used EV. Correct, depreciation is very low on them. Between 2017 and 2019, the cars are still very expensive and the features don't really hold up well against the latest. What used EV 2017, 2019 I would go for? I wouldn't go for, I'd be dead honest, and this is coming from the heart. There's not a single one of them that I like to look of in that range, in that year. Simply because they're just so... You're buying into old tech in 2019. You're buying into the birth of the newest ones, but the death of the oldest ones, and there's kind of an in-betweeny one. I might go for a Model 3 maybe, because the software was pretty good in that and the battery was pretty good in that. It's the beginning of the Volkswagen ID3. Maybe there's something in that to go for. Very hard to look at that year range to see something that I'd want. I'd still wait for another 12 months and I think I'd get something a little bit further away, something 2020, 2021 but I'd buy that in 2024. I'd go back another little bit because I just don't think there's a lot of EVs in that section that's going to be good ones to hold on to for a long period of time. One that stands out maybe with the Kia EV Soul, that Soul version, that was pretty good. That was okay. Andrew says, hi, I've got an EV last year, Honda E and solar, 11 kilowatt battery for 11,000 with a night rate at 8 cent per kilowatt, 21,000 kilometers, cost 300 quid. Bloody hell, when you start in those kind of terms, that is a small battery car, but in those kind of terms, you can see how much you could save by having your EV. I mean, it's certainly, if you're doing the mileage, if you're doing any sort of mileage at all, very straightforward to see that you can save a lot of money by charging at home from a solar PV, from a battery storage system. Definitely, or solar trickle charge. But obviously when you come into the new year or into the wintertime, like we are now starting to move into wintertime, it's fairly hard to get any electricity. You only get maybe 4 or 5 hours of even daylight in Ireland at this time of the year. Next month, say, moving into October. Pat Stevens says, economic divide is growing every year. 20 to 30-year-olds today afford cars, flats or houses. Green policy is a good idea, but we can't afford it. 100%, Pat. I was actually talking about this with my wife last night. You'd be surprised how much effort I put into Sunday service, having my thoughts straight coming in. We were talking about stuff last night. And when we got together, which is 25 years ago when we got together, we walked into a flat 25 odd years ago, more or less. We were together 3 or 4 months and we decided to go and live together because we just got on so well. So we got a flat in Tullamore. That flat was £40 a week. And we had a choice of flats. I was just one to be found in the local paper. There was loads of flats we could have rented out at that time. So you could rent somewhere to call it your own for 12 months and get yourself together, get yourself sorted out and kind of get yourself in a way that you can afford something better, save up money and have something set aside. And you can afford a car. We bought a car as well back then. We bought £100 it was, an old Nissan Micra, an ancient joke with holes in the door and everything. A terrible car. But we could afford it. We could afford to put petrol in and things. Whereas today, I just seem to think people just cannot get moving. If you're paying 12 or 1,300 quid a month for a flat, or $2,000 a month for a flat, how can you put money aside for that? It's just like, whoa, how can you afford to do anything? I know you can stop buying coffees and stuff in petrol stations, but realistically, it's still costing you a bomb to do everything. Bob, I've missed the Sunday service. So has a lot of people. We're back for this week. I won't be here next week, just so you know. I'm on a plane next week at the same time as the Sunday service is running. I'm going to Turkey with a car company, and I can't talk about the trip. But I will be making a video while I'm out there. But Turkey, unfortunately, is like outside EU zone, so I can't even do uploads of videos or nothing when I'm there. I'll only do that when I get some Wi-Fi. So watch out on my social media next week. I will be talking about it when I'm on the trip, but right now I can't. I'm still under an embargo with the trip, but it is Turkey. Be interesting. But why not do then and now with Leaf from your first video and the latest one? The latest one's old now, isn't it though? I mean, the latest one has been around for a couple of years, 3-4 years now, with no battery cooler in. So yeah, it'd be interesting, yeah. Great idea, says DF. Maybe we can have the next year revisit where drive cars reviewed 10 years ago and see how to stack up. What I'd love to do is find the car, it's a reg plate, the one that I actually reviewed. Because pretty much every year, a couple of times a year, someone will Instagram DM me going, I bought the car you actually reviewed. The actual review car, I ended up buying it and kept it. So nearly every year I get that. So most of the cars that exist, because they're actual license plates. They don't change license plates, it stays on. My wife's school has been quoted 500 and half a million quid for gas plan. They can't afford it, so the government had to take back control of the school. Bloody hell. £500,000 for a school. Jesus. What are we getting to, lads? Clover Video says, hi Bob, recently had an MOT on my car and it didn't pass the emissions part of the test. My car is over 10 years old, but it seems to the tolerance for emissions is stricter. Do you know if this is true? I don't think it's any stricter. They do play around with the numbers every once in a while, but I don't think it's gotten any stricter. To my knowledge, the like NCT or MOT hasn't changed the emissions level for a long time. Now, you could use a fuel treatment system. You might have just had a bad shot at one particular MOT, and you might have one that's more sensitive than others, or just that day you use different fuel or something, and the emissions come out a little bit higher. So you could use a fuel treatment before the NCT, before MOT. You could do a service. It's caulking it's looking for in the engine, so it's just cars get a little bit rougher over time, but as far as I know, they haven't lowered the MOT numbers on emissions. No. Garner says, hi Bob, do you think other manufacturers will copy the VW ID Buzz? Seems like a better factor. It's a big yoke now. ID Buzz is a big thing. It's like a van, small van. I think so what electric cars are allowing us to do is to have any form factor of car above it. So you've got a platform underneath, which is a floating platform. So essentially it's not a ladder chassis anymore. It's bits of a thing that all hook together, and the battery is nearly part of the chassis. And so if you have that platform, you make the platform longer, you can make it shorter, but essentially you can put anything you really want to put on top of that platform. So you can put a van shape, or you can put a car shape, or you can put a small little thing, a big thing. Do whichever you want. It just all depends how big you want to get it. So with ID Buzz, I think it's a novel, very clever idea to make a van-shaped 5-seat car. There's a 7-seat one coming. And I actually think that'll be a huge success for Volkswagen. I think people will buy that in droves, because you can have, you can actually make it a van. You can buy the ID Buzz Cargo, or you can just buy the 5-seat one and convert it to be a van. But it also means you have a lifestyle vehicle. So if you go camping, or you go surfing, or you go cycling on the weekends with your mountain bikes, that all fits in the bloody thing. It's brilliant. Like, it all fits inside it, or it can fit in the roof of it. You can do all kinds. The choices become large. Range obviously be affected by weight. It's still a 2.5 ton car. Let's not forget that these electric cars are really heavy. But I still think we have a chance to make something that's very different from the normal of cars. Oh, sorry, that probably hurt your ears. Hit me cup off the microphone. But I think car designers are kind of going back to the drawing board on a lot of the stuff they're doing right now. That's, I think, what's really going on. They're changing how they make it. 100 likes, 1 downvote. Sorry about the downvote. Retro B Bill, can I ask where the price of everything came out of? It can't be all the war, why it's electrical shortages all of a sudden. What's the difference between now and before? Nothing. Okay, so the big difference would be there's no gas coming from Russia. We use gas in this country to generate electricity. You do too in the UK. It's the same pretty much across Europe. We use gas turbines to create electricity sometimes. We use some renewable. In this country, the best renewable day, I think, was 38%. But that was like a day, not over a month. It's down 15% or something comes from renewable, which is wind turbine. The rest is bought in the wholesale market, or we generate it here in the country. What we've lost control of is what we generate in the country. That's what we've lost control of. Really seriously, our own government needs to look at our own electricity generation and why it's going up every single time, no matter what. They seem to just raise the price willy-nilly all they want, no matter how we generate electricity. And that's where the market is screwed. I mean, it's completely skewed in favor of the electric generation companies. That's where we're being ripped off. Even though we actually own ESB. I mean, the general public, the government of Ireland owned ESB. Bobby liked the 2019 Kia Soul. I mentioned that. I was very quick at the end of that, said the Kia Soul. You see, that's the problem with car reviews as well. You can end up liking a car when you review it first, because based upon what else is in the market at that moment, it's the best. But then next week, a different car comes out and it's better. But that video still sits there as being, well, you said that was brilliant. Now you're saying that one's brilliant. It's very hard to say that the future of cars, they're all crap. But I think they've certainly gotten better over the last couple of years. 2020, 2021, 22, the development has happened now. And a lot of the cars that are coming out now are different. They feel better to drive. They're more interesting to drive. The software is better. And I'm going to particularly point out Mercedes EQE, which I just had. I swear if I had the money, I would have bought that car. 105,000 euros, not cheap. but that was the one I was driving. But that's the long range 350 plus. Just a brilliant car. It suited everything I wanted to do. It's a tiny bit small, but it suited everything. Right on cue, Bob, as your weather app predicted, a downpour began here in Western Scotland, battering off my office window. What I tell you, we know everything. We're like a proper news service these days. Once the Sunday service comes back, which will be a couple of weeks away, not next week, but the week after that, I will bring in the phone-in system, so you'll be able to phone in or text in on a WhatsApp if you want to, because I've created a WhatsApp group for it. So you can text the WhatsApp number. That should be easy for you. You might have to jot it down for the few of you that are actually here right now. You can actually jot down the phone number if you want to. It's 089 267 0030. That's 089 267 0030 is the WhatsApp line for this show. And it'll be instigated from the week after next. If you want to get in your questions ahead of time, you can do it that way. And we'll probably bring on calling system as well, so you'll be able to actually phone the line. I can put you on air like a Joe Duffy moment. It's a total experiment. It may not work, but it could be brilliant as well. Automotive Altruist says, what you're saying about hire purchase, is that HP hire purchase? I used to have VW Tiguan 2-litre TDI 150 swap for a Qashqai 1.6 TDI 130 horsepower. Yeah, Qashqai is much lighter, feels faster, definitely better MPG. That's the bit of it is power to weight ratio is everything with cars. No matter what the car is, electric, petrol, diesel, hybrid, mild hybrid, it's power to weight ratio is really all that matters. Horsepower is a weird number. It doesn't make much sense. It's something that came from a long time ago that we really rely on to get an idea of where it is in the world. But realistically, the problem begins that if you look at something that's 200 horsepower, but it weighs 3 tons, that doesn't make any sense. So it's going to be slow. Look at trucks, which can have 800 or 900 horsepower in them, and they're still not able to go any faster than 80 kilometers an hour. So it's horsepower is a very strange thing to rely on. You look at power to weight ratio of a car, look at how much torque there is in a car is a better one to look at. Look at the size of the engine versus the size of the car physically. So like a 2-litre diesel is a heavier engine, but has more horsepower, more torque than a 1.6, or you can fiddle with 1.6, you can have more horsepower. It all feels very different when you talk about power to weight ratio. Strathmorn Holstein says, any experience in EVs in the cold? Yeah. Here in Canada, I'm very skeptical about performance in minus 25. Cost of living out of control here as well. Well, they work. So most of the draw, the batteries used to have what's called vampire drain. So in very cold weather, the actual energy from the battery would disappear into the ground, into the air, and just be gone because the cold got at it and it had to keep us warm. Now, they've kind of gotten over that. Mostly they've gotten over that vampire drain bit. But what they haven't gotten over and never will is your air conditioning. So as we go back to the very beginning, making something cold warm, making something warm cold is the biggest amount of energy that a car or anything has to put out. So if you're getting into a car, it's minus 25 outside, your first instinct is heater on, seat heaters, steering heaters, whatever heater you can turn on will be turned on in the car. That will draw a lot of energy. You can offset some of that by leaving it plugged in and have the car preheat before you get there. But actually, my experience, preheating actually pulls energy from the battery, not from your house. It still comes from the battery. Once the battery's charged, it's charged. It doesn't really turn back on the charger after that. But preheating will certainly bring that energy drain down to some degree. But generally speaking, your range can go down by 20% the colder it gets. So, but realistically, your range goes down by quite a bit in a petrol or diesel car as well when it's cold outside, because that also has to work hard to get itself warm. People don't buy £100 cars anymore. They have the latest BMW on finance. That's the problem. There's the problem. Expectation. You know, you leave school or college at 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, and your first thing is, I'm going to buy a Beamer or a Mercedes. I have a degree. I should be getting 200 grand a year. And instead I'm getting 35 grand a year. And I think I should own a BMW anyway. PCP, Personal Contract Plan, and the UK have a version of that as well. I think is the one that's actually just pushing the price of everything through the roof, because you don't really understand the price of the car. You know, the car is 70 grand, but that's not the way they're selling it. They're selling it as 250 quid a week or a month, or that sounds fairly manageable. I can deal with that for 3 years. Yeah, no problem. And you know, you have your special choices. You can just hand the car back. You can just roll over your finance. You can do all these special little options in it. But realistically, you've got to keep those payments up for 3 years. And then you got to find that balloon payment at the end. It's very like hire purchase. So, but it is distorting the value of cars, and it's distorting the future value of cars, because there's guaranteed minimum future values. And There's all kinds of things that PCP is killing you. But no one wants to buy. Go into Done Deal there for 2 minutes and have a look and just put in the maximum price you're willing to pay is €150. Look what turns up. You'd be looking to find a headlight. Connor Crowley says, but I don't have an idea how as I can keep switch off permanently the lane keep assist lane departure on my 2022 Audi A3. It's active by default. You should be able to map that out, but you might require someone specialist to do that for you. It's an ECU thing. It's been turned on by the ECU. So you probably could map that out, but it's not. I don't know if you could just turn it off yourself. You might find an OBD2 reader that you can switch off and on certain things inside the car from an app on your phone. A lot of them are like that, but they can be quite expensive to do it just the once. You're probably better off bunging a guy a couple of £100 to have an ECU map done and map it out that way. Daniel 1, Connor, I'd say you need to get into OBD. There, OBD port, turn it off that way. It drives me insane. It does me too. The one that drives me the most insane is the Kia one. Do you know that? The Kia, you can turn it off. You can press and hold down the button for a bit and it turns off the lane keeping assist. But when it's on, it's just every time you go around a corner, it sees a little line here and there. It's so annoying. As Daniel points out, your local Indian mechanics will be able to do it for a few quid. Definitely, I would go that route. It's much cheaper to do that than it is to buy an OBD2 reader that's capable of doing it, which would probably cost you £200 or £300. And then you download an app. Then you subscribe to something or other as well, and you put it all in, and then you can turn off this one thing you want to do, and you turn it off, and then you go, well, I'm just going to turn up the road. Find a local Indian mechanic, give them a couple of £100 or give them whatever it is that it takes, £50 to turn something off like that, and it'll all be done for you, and then you don't have to worry about it. Pat Stevens says, insurance and tax killing the older first car market. Correct, the Mundo. No problem in NCT to insure safe cars, but won't allow older car owners to be penalised with insurers and taxman. Pat, I've had multiple queries over the last while where lads are after passing NCTs and they can't get insurance on an older car because the insurance company goes, nah, it's a risk. Too much of a risk for us. And you go, but it's fully NCT. It's completely safe. NCT says safe, it's passed all my tests, passed everything, and still they won't give the insurance out. And so we have many factors working against those older, cheaper cars. The insurance company won't insure them. The NCT starts failing them when they're older, a bit older, on simple things. And suddenly it's every year to get it. My car has to be tested every year. Like it's every 12 months we have to go in for the NCT. We're still waiting to see if it passes nearly every time. But like that's 55, 65 quid a year you have to spend putting things right in the car every single year, no matter what happens. And then, of course, the tax is higher on older cars. Just so much against them. Stephen McGee says hi. Hello, Stephen. You're a bit late to the game for saying hi, but anyway. Automobile 3, the new electric Transit is so heavy, young people will not be able to drive it as it's over 3.5 tons. That's the problem with battery cars. Why do people buy a Transit, right? To put things in it, to carry stuff around in it. Carpenters put shelves in them and builders put shelves and things and put all their tools and equipment inside them. Then they put a trailer on the back. So if a car starts out being 3 to 3.5 tons, it's already a different license category. Then you put a trailer in the back and suddenly it's 4.5 tons. And you put all the stuff inside the car and it's 5 tons. You might as well just bought yourself a truck. Like it's so heavy now. Forget about it. It's not going to work. Electric vans are still very much in their infancy and I don't think it's going to work. Pádraig McGarity says, Connor, get a loan of an OBD. That's the OBD2 again. You can get a setting every time you turn on the car. My A6. Oh, there, Pádraig did it with an A6, an actual Audi. So good. That's the way it should be. Don't know about you, but personally, I'd rather buy the gas off Russia and have it in our pockets. It can't keep going like this. Ukraine can get better treatment than the Irish here in our own country. If Russia invaded Ireland, do you think, where would we go? Like, what would we do? We go over to England or somewhere? Do you think what would happen over there just as easy? Would it be just as straightforward? Anyway, no. Stephen says, hi Bob, thinking of upgrading our car the next year or so. Is there a couple of new SUV, PHEVs like Mazda CX-60? Good car that. Would really look nice. Would it make sense or should I go full EV? I would go full EV. If you can afford it, Stephen, I would go full EV and just forget about it. I think PHEVs are, if your mileage is high, like twice a year, once or twice a year, you drive all the way to Donegal or something, or you go down to Waterford, you're in Dublin and you go that big long drive and you do it to go to a holiday home twice a year. Maybe a PHEV would work for you if you're willing to plug it in every day. But other than that, if you're driving your normal commute stuff, I just buy an EV and be done with it. Anyway, listen, we have hit the 2 o'clock mark. I know it's only 5 to, but I started at 5 to. We're just going up on the 2 o'clock mark. It was very nice to have you along today. I will not be here next week for the Sunday service, as I'll be on a plane at exactly the right time that the Sunday service runs at. I'll be boarding a plane. So it'll be the same for next year. Next week, I'll already be on it. But I should be back the week after. Just check my dates, make sure I'm right. Should be back on the week after that. I should be on that week. The 25th will be the next Sunday service. And we will, if you want to put that phone number into your phone, we will start that WhatsApp. So text by WhatsApp, and you can text the phone number of 089 267 0030, and we will take your WhatsApp queries online straight away and have you there the whole time with the chats going. And that texts this phone directly. It's in my hand. It's an old iPhone 7, and it works very well. Good old battery in it, still goes. And I'm very happy to continue giving another life, and we'll take it online and we'll get some call-ins as well on the day and see what happens. But of course, you can always support here directly into the chat, and the chats here are good. You can also support on what do you call that thing? PayPal or Patreon. You can do it there too if you want to. The link's in the bio. Very good to have you all aboard again today. It's very nice of you all to drop in and have a lovely little time. I will be in Paris over the week. I'm but I'm going over with Dacia to talk about what Dacia is about to do over the next few years. And so I'll come back full of information from that. That's next week. And then later on the week, I'll go to Turkey. And I will see what the secret trip is all about. I'm looking forward to finding out what the secret trip is. Anyway, thank you very, very much for watching. And I hope I will see you at the next Sunday service, whenever that is, or during the week, or on my social media. Thanks again. Look after yourselves. And I will see you on the far side.